Uh, Good evening, you sorry sacks of shit if you're watching this. Good God, it's late. Go to bed. There's other places to be. Tonight I'm here with Shadow, maybe a few other dumb fucks just in case they want to show up. Oh my God, in the past 30 seconds. I guess I'm not going to get paid for this show. Oh, wait, do I ever get paid? No! Connell doesn't get paid. Fuck Connell.
Hey,
Anyways.
man. How you doing?
My God. Hey, what's up? Owen? Long time no see. I forgot to mention I actually got my first super chat from Holy Diver, and since I'm not signed up or anything, that money's just going to be sitting in limbo until I do. But it was awful nice because he's a Rumble guy and we stream on Rumble now. So Owen, hope you had fun tonight. You did a great job.
Well, we'll find out. I noticed that it keeps on blinking out for the StreamYard, but we'll see. No, the Traveler game was fine. There's always questions about like, wait a minute, how is he overcoming me when I have like super high levels for certain things? But that's fine.
It was because of the difficulty.
Oh yeah, I know.
Some of the things you were trying to do were really difficult, and you rolled low. So it was that.
Yeah. No, I'm still laughing at the whole thing. It's you start looking at it, it's like, well, you could have just done this. Look, if I get any higher, it makes difficult.
No, I think what Justin's problem is that your character was like really competent, where everybody else was like shooting for low competent characters, which
well, no.
If you stay in long enough, that's what happens.
Well, I was trying to avoid some of that. I didn't even intend my character to be that high. I just kept being, you get another electronic skill. Oh, you get another electronic skill. Well, I might as well just keep.
Well, I think that and the stats too.
Well, that was another one.
Most of the players are topping out at 9s at best. But I think
you can blame Justin for it. Justin rolled all my characters and my stats and everything else. It's 100% on his fault.
I'll remind him of that. But hey, Owen, I wanted to show you something because I don't know. Ow, son of a! I just got a paper cut on the thing I was about to show you.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not okay. Paper cuts, pain in the ass. Now I'm gonna get blood on my brand new book. I got this from friends of yours.
Oh, let's see. Oh, that's pretty cool.
Hold on. Wait.
Put that back up there. Put it back up there. So everybody else can see.
It's from Judges Guild. It's the what do you call it? Judges Guild Deluxe Edition, Volume 1 of the.
Oh, from Goodman Games. Wow, that is that. Woo! That is not cheap either.
No, well, it was. That's the thing. I've been eyeballing this in Volume 2. Volume 2 is $300 minimum. Okay.
Man,
this one, the box itself says $100. Even the box, I'll show you that in a minute, is designed for this giganto-enormous. I could use this as a freaking shield. Look how thick that is. Look at the binding.
Use it as a coffee table. Jesus.
Exactly. I mean, I could play my role-playing games on this book. And it's got all the Judges Guild magazines and Teagle Manor, which I already have an original copy of, a bunch of other modules in it from all the way back to like 1975, white box stuff. But even the box, I want to show you because look at the interior of the box and you can see how it's actually like custom designed on the sides here.
Yeah, so it won't break it. Yeah, it's good.
Nice.
So it protects it.
This is the biggest book I've ever owned.
Literally.
And books for $100. I got it for less than $50, including shipping. Brand new. And it's got fold out maps and just all kinds of interviews and what it was like back in 1975, 76, 70, through the early or late 70s of the original hobby, Dungeons and Dragons, white box.
I mean, Goodman Games is everything I've looked at is they just love and embrace the whole, the old school, school.
I'm right now. I'm looking at, since I cannot possibly afford Volume 2, which is $300.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the what is it? Dying Earth and their Lankmar stuff.
Yeah.
But the thing that struck me the most, besides the just absolute gorgeousness of this book, is the address. They're in a place called Santa Clara, California.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 30 minutes from where I live.
Oh, wow.
So I'm going to
shipping must
hit
have been
them
really
up
cheap.
and see what kind of relationship we can develop. Because I don't see a lot of people covering their stuff. And I'm going to cover this like crazy. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to read this at the dinner table because it's literally the only table big enough that will support that. If I put it down on my table here, I do that, just a little wiggle, and it's going to go crazy. But
I mean, here's the thing that, Goodman Games is one of the few that actually seems to embrace all those old Appendix N authors and everything.
yeah,
They're going to
yeah.
Selassie. Now, are they, partially woke? Yes, but you know what? They're like, we just love games. We love our gamers. And that's just like, that's the way it should be. Leave your damn politics out of my damn games.
Yep.
And I've liked their stuff. I think that they're pretty good quality. I don't have to agree with authors necessarily, but that's fine. They embrace gamers. That's what gets me. It's like, we love our customers.
Well, not only that, but I mean, they're reprinting the oldest of the old. The only thing that's older than Judges Guild is Dungeons and Dragons and Arduin, and those two are, Judges Guild and Arduin were, like the first supplements for D&D. Period, hands down. Other than Tunnels and Trolls, which is its own thing, a whole game, completely different mentality and approach to the hobby. And as I get older, I couldn't get into the hobby in '74. I was 8, and even when I was 10 and 12 and actually getting into the hobby, I couldn't comprehend some of the stuff or get my hands on some of the stuff. The only stuff I could get in the very beginning was what was at our local Gemco, which was like the equivalent of a Walmart department store kind of thing, where I could get the original books, and my local game shop. And even my local game shop at first I could only get to if a parent would drive me. But as I got older,
Ooh,
what's that?
So, I mean, that's the Dark Tower. The original, their OAR stuff, which TSR stopped them from printing this, but they saw the stuff from Judges Guild. So that was the Dark Tower module. So you have the original on Volume 1, and then you have the DCC versions right here, and you can get the 5e versions if you're interested. But
yeah, I'm kidding. I have the Dark Tower on its way. Funny story. I had ordered it really, really cheap. Just the original reprint stuff. From an eBayer, and after 5 days, they still hadn't shipped it.
Yeah.
And I contacted them. They said, "Oh, you still have a couple more days on our handling time." And I'm like, "No, I'm canceling it. I literally can order it in 5 minutes from now and have it to me before your wait time." And they're like, "Fine, whatever." It's some lady selling her husband's stuff and her stuff, and if you've got a wait time of 7 days handling time, that's crazy these days. Even though eBay has like a 5-day hold on your money in some cases, I ordered the book and it was in the mail the same day. I've got the tracking number. It'll be here like Monday or Tuesday, and of course I won't even get to read it for weeks. But it's the principle. It's like, hey, you're going to lose this sale because you can't get your stuff together in a timely manner. It's a, for most people who can drive, it's, I understand that it could be up to an hour, wrapping the package, going to the post office, coming back, all that, time is money, but, most people can, have it built into their schedule. If you're really doing eBay, it's not that hard to make it part of your life. I mean, you're getting paid for it. this is what you're going to do.
You know what? At the end of the day, I bought a lot of stuff, and some of them took 2 weeks, some of them took 3 weeks.
Mhm.
For me, a lot of stuff isn't critical because I'm like, I'll get to it eventually. That's what I did with my Legend of the Five Rings books, which I really liked, the Final Fantasy ones. Sorry, the not Final Fantasy, Fantasy Flight books. But a lot of this stuff is, I know you're a bit more particular about it, but it's just like when people complain about Kickstarters and like the close. It takes 6
I
months
never
for the
complain about
fastest Kickstarter to get.
If you're like me, after a while when you're doing Kickstarters, you have so many coming in that you really don't care. And like with a couple of them, I hope they don't get here for a while. I got nowhere to put them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Well, let me send you my address.
I've got two Kickstarters that I still have yet to paint, let alone read.
I'm still waiting for all of my Kingdom Death to come in. I mean, that's been 2016.
That's like an entire closet's worth of merchandise.
Oh, I know.
I really wanted to get into that, but I was thinking, you know what? I just can't. And I felt the same way about Cthulhu Wars.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, this looks so much fun. And I missed the Kickstarter, blah, blah, blah. And a buddy of mine says, oh, hey, you know what? I'll sell you the whole Kickstarter for X. And I'll have my dad deliver it because he lives in another state, but his dad's here. And his dad did the whole thing for me. There's this giant freaking box of Cthulhu. It's like Cthulhu meets Risk, Connell, where you're playing one of the great old ones, crushing the earth and, trying to take it over at the end times kind of thing. I got that 4 years ago. I still haven't played it. I don't have all day and 8 friends to come over and play it, but I guarantee you when I open the shop, I'll just put up a sign. We're playing Cthulhu Wars this weekend. Who's in? And I'll have a line of people. It's like, oh, you got it? Yeah, sure. Anybody know how to play? Because I don't. I read a bunch of it, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't sound too bad, but it was too much for little Jackie and I to play. And now he's too busy, and I'm sure he would enjoy the hell out of it, but he's too busy.
Well, I mean, my of course, my son decided to get into 5e because there were girls playing. Like, oh, you wouldn't play with me, nice. But yeah, you'll play because there are like 6 girls in the library group.
Boy after my own heart. Hey, Connell, are you looking at anything new? Or are you still just doing the same kind of things?
Yeah,
I'm playing Dragonborn. I'm playing what the fuck is the system called? It's Psy City, Psy RPG. It's something like that. It's like what's on punk? It's punk, cyberpunk-ish.
Okay.
In nature. It's fun.
No, wait a minute. Are you playing
Dragon
Bane or a different game?
I'm playing Dragonbane.
Okay. You said Dragonborn.
That's the one with the ducks.
Check.
Yeah, Dragonbane's with the ducks. Hold on. Let me pull up my roll.
Yeah, a friend of mine sent me the PDF. I went through it and I went, yeah, there's everything about the magic user I hated. So I was like, it's not.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, the magic, I'm not enjoying. Well, I'm not playing magic user, but I've heard other people complain about it. It's a roll down game, so I fucking suck at it. Sci-Fi Adventures. CYFI Adventures. That's the name of the game, and it's cyberpunk-ish.
Gotcha.
So,
yeah.
when you're talking about Dragon, I bought it. I mean, Freely does good quality stuff. Doesn't matter what it is. I don't have to like everything, but I haven't played it. It's looked interesting.
I'm enjoying it. It's very simple RPG, very simple mechanics in it. And instead of, rolling to see what your initiative is, you get a pack of cards, and whoever draws the highest card. It's fun. I mean, it's just really fun. It's not crunchy. I don't think it's crunchy at all.
No, it's not. It's a little too uncrunchy for me or too smooth for me.
Yeah,
I would like a little more, but I'm working on, because I'm so frustrated with most Magic systems in making Magic either too hard or punitive. If you screw up when when your fighters and thieves and clerics are swinging their weapons and doing their thing, which is their job. They never have to worry about growing a third eye or something really bad happening just for doing their job, and I don't like that. And so I'm coming up with something that's not Harry Potter, but definitely old school. You're freaking like 12th level magic user right out of the gate.
Well, you also have to
And
understand a lot of these games, even you're more of a Gandalf kind of wizard because you can still fight pretty decently, and then you have spells to back up, but you're not quite as good as the fighters. And
exactly.
so it's not you're just not going to be someone that's slinging spells the entire time.
Right, and I want something like that. I grew up. The first magic user I really loved was Doctor Strange, and
well, that's a sorcery. That's not a straight freaking wizard. He's a the way the MCU made him is more wizard than sorcery. But if you're doing him out 3.5 or I'd run him as a freaking sorcerer.
I don't like the delineation between the two names because they're synonymous, and they tried to make it into something. If one studies and learns the rules, and the other person just is born with it, right?
Right.
And that takes away so much from the guy who's born with it. You know what I mean?
Well,
from the guy who studies and does
the
the
guy
hard.
who gets the sorcerers, the way I've always thought, and I could be wrong, but the way I always thought to run them is sorcerers don't get access to the same spells wizards do. Wizards have a fucking library, biggest library they can get. Where sorcerers' ability to cast spells, their list is no bigger than a couple notebooks. They can do it, but it's not. It's difference between going to college and going to a junior
paying for the
college.
ease of access with a limited amount of access.
Yeah. As I said, yeah.
I've gone through it. I like a few spells, but I like a lot of variety in the spells, which is probably the reason I like the Conan spell system. Though the problem is after a while they want to codify it because it gives too much flexibility. Like, no, I like very flexible spells, which is why like Mage the Awakening I always enjoyed for some of that. But I also like a big paradox on the thing, which I know you're not talking about, but like, oh yeah, you don't use magic willy-nilly. You use it when you have to, and when you do, there's going to be repercussions at a cosmological and genetic level.
Yeah, that's a little much. I get that, because I did grow up reading a lot of things, where that was kind of the thing. But at the same time, every once in a while, you want to cut loose and not be, the dead weight of the party.
Oh, that's fair.
And not to go quite the Harry Potter route where you're the freaking star of the show, but if you got 4 players, the magic user guy should be the star of the show every 4th game.
But here's what I'm going to look at from my perspective, and this has to do with games overall, is I wish they'd given the read magic ability and the read languages ability to the magic user in D&D and not the thief. And I wish that they'd given him a couple of other abilities. It's like, look, when you blow your spells, we're bringing you along because you have the other capabilities to go in there and do stuff. And I know that 5th edition has done some of that with their proficiencies, but I really wish that they had fleshed out more from that aspect, which is, guess what? And this is where I think Adventure Conquer King system does a good job. Oh, you get lore mastery, you get this, you get some of those other proficiencies that make it well worth having you. Like if you have alchemy, okay, guess what? That guy's he's building the potions, he's doing the scrolls, he's doing the research. I want him along because he's always valuable in the group. I want my fighter because he's valuable because he can kick ass and bring up armies. My explorer ranger, well, guess what? He takes us out into the woods. We can know where the hell we're going. Oh, my venture is the one that does all of the economics. You're like, okay, everyone has their own niche. And that's what I really look at is whenever people talk about balance, my view is it's not that you can take on the same things directly or indirectly. It's that you have your niche that they want you in the group because you're able to fill that niche that the others cannot, which is why
old-fashioned class protection.
Yeah, exactly. And that's some of the problems why I don't like these in between. And I will bring this because you're pretty nice. Boy, you're a paladin, guess what? You got neutral players, you're getting kicked out of the group after about 2 adventures. But I won't play paladin. Well, that's what it says for the paladin. You have to accept that. Ranger, guess what? You start doing evil, boom, you lose your powers. I would be a lot more critical. I mean, I do think it's funny because I was arguing with one guy about paladins. And I said, clerics have the same, limitations. Like, no, they don't. Like, really, go look at the Dungeon Master's Guide and then go look at deities and demigods. And it specifically says in there. Now, the thing is, most people don't play it. But as far as the rules say, it's in there. And most people don't follow it, but it's in there. If you don't follow the dictates it's like, look, clerics to me are the overpowered class everyone forgets about because they're just like, they're this, they're that. I'm like, no. I mean, just like when we played that one game with, Connell that one time with the old school essentials BX.
Oh yeah, that Mark ran.
Yeah. I mean, when you start looking at it, it's like, well, okay, we can fling this. We can have spells here. We have this protection over here. And the BX spells are so much better than the AD&D spells. They're so much better. And then some that came out 4 years later, they had time to revise the spells and actually make them clear and understandable. And then they made the durations longer. The AD&D spells are fairly short. They're not well worded. They're not clear in a lot of cases.
No, I've seen some.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. 5th edition just is coming out with their new model, which is fine. It's a business. They can do whatever the hell they want. It's a good way to lose money, but, that's just my opinion. With that being said, my oldest, Laszlo, he's been going to the local game shop and on Wednesday night because they have Venture League there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, can you help me build a 5th edition character? I'm like, yeah, I can help you with that. That's no problem. Okay, so what am I looking at? Well, it's the new 5th edition, 25. I'm like, fuck. I don't know what they changed. I don't know, He's like, will you look into it? I'm like, yeah, of course I'll look into it.
Yeah.
So it's a thing. I'm not mad at it, or certain aspects I'm kind of digging. I don't know if I'll ever run the new edition for a while, but if it gets kids, and this was any system, if it gets kids like your son to go make friends at the local game shop, like Shadow's going to run at some point in his life, then I'm for any system out there as long as it fits 3 things: A, the kids are having a good time; B, it fucking makes sense. It doesn't so much have to make sense to me, but makes sense to the people that's playing it; and C, it's a safe place.
I know what you mean.
I mean, especially when kids. I mean, the 3 of us are adults.
No. I mean, at the end of the day, when I have tons of systems, I'm like, look, each system does something well, usually. So a bad system doesn't do anything well. But, some systems do well and some do not. And like Shadow's talking about, well, I want a more high powered game. And he said, well, Dragonbane doesn't fit that. Well, neither does, what's the Forbidden Lands.
Right.
But, if I want a good hex crawl, Forbidden Lands is pretty damn good. I haven't played Dragonbane. If I want a game that does this, Traveler is a really easy game. It is. I mean, that's why when you're talking with Raven, and I said specifically, you're overcomplicating this with D&D, and it's too much for her. But if I tell her, guess what? Add your modifier for this stat, and then the skill, and then roll 2d6. Boom. Okay, that's a very simple to understand. You don't have to look up stuff. You don't have to guess at it. It's like, okay, this is what I can do. And that's why I like Traveler. And it's a skill-based system. You don't have to know your role. D&D for the most part, even the 5th edition, it's intended more for war gamers. It really is.
Oh yeah. I mean, Bruce runs a really good campaign if you like his style of gaming, and I kind of do it. Where Traveler, the few times I get to play Traveler because of Shadow, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was a little bit different for me, but different's good. I'll never
Yeah.
say difference. Well, some different is bad, but from a gaming point of view, playing something outside your norm is healthy. It's something you should try to do.
Well, literally, to quote the original Dungeon Master, if you want to be a master, there are a bunch of things you need to do. One of them is, master the game you're playing, and then move on to other games, and then write a game, and a few other things that slip my mind at the moment. But it's just like mastering anything. 10,000 hours right off the bat. You got to put 10,000 hours in. Okay, all right. That's insurmountable to most people, but everybody here and everybody we know probably done that once to 4 times over, maybe
Oh, yeah.
5. I don't know. I don't want to do the math, but
If
I
I
know I've
link
done.
all my gaming experiences all in one, yeah, easily.
So I'm going to give a good example of a system I do not like, but every time I've played it, I've had fun, and it's the Cipher system. It's easy to understand. Players can get into it. It gives kind of a role, and you just go with it. Does it click with me? No, but every time I've played it, one is I've played the most ridiculous games, including a sock hop that was invaded by thugs who then we had to fight off space aliens from the 1950s, at which point the space aliens turned him into a giant hot dog. Okay, I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing ever, but one is...
That sounds like the game I was in this morning or this afternoon.
It was ridiculous. It was fun to play with people. I don't really like the system, but okay.
Yeah. I'm the game I'm in with OGGM. It's according to him, it's Shadow Dark.
Okay.
If you know me, I'm not a fan of anything about that whole phenomenon. For other reasons I'm not going to talk about. But I'm having a blast. I'm playing with Cal, RPG Grandma, Mike and Jen from Married with Gaming, and me. And we're laughing our ass off. We ended up in New York City bumping into Spider-Man and Captain America tonight.
Okay.
Today.
Okay.
And we're on our way to go see Doctor Strange because I had been sent to hell earlier in that game. And now I have to do something for this succubus that I don't want to do. It's not what you think. And I've got a little cat following me around named Clyde, who's not really a cat, but all because no, it's not a familiar at all. Okay, my character's name is Roger Landis. Okay, Captain Roger Landis. I was in World War II.
Wow, really digging deep with that name, aren't you?
I was a World War II Army captain on my way to Dunkirk with a nun. We had to deliver something, blah, blah, blah. I think baby get hurt. and somehow we ended up in a D&D world and with a cyborg and a kid from Home Depot and a girl, an elf from Shadowrun, I think it is.
Okay.
So it's pure California gonzo all the way. Everybody's from California. It's the most gonzo game I've been in a long time. And it all happened because they call me Captain Rogers. And they were trying to find me with a mystic portal that would help them find Captain Rogers because they kept calling me by the wrong name. And who's the most famous Captain Rogers?
Buck.
Steve.
No, it's not Steve Rogers. It's Buck Rogers.
Okay, that's fair.
Steve Rogers is the $6 million man, but Buck Rogers is the captain.
No, that's Steve Majors.
Oh, Steve Majors, yeah.
So he went with the most famous Captain Rogers, which is Captain America. So we ended up bumping into Captain America. And where's Captain America live? New York City, Marvel Cinematic Universe. Here we go.
Okay, and this is in a Shadow Dark system?
Well, that's what he's using to facilitate this game. It's a lot of fun. It's not because of the mechanics, though. It has nothing to do with that.
No. Well, the only thing I like about Shadow Dark is it was easy, it was fast, and it was deadly compared to 5e. And that was something. If you actually look at it, because I like listening to Kelsey Dion. she's always been friendly, has never like attacked anyone. I was like, okay, cool. She didn't play this, politics, which was good. She's just like, when they're like, oh, you have to go sign this. She's like, ignored them. But it was, but yeah, she's always been very flattering towards people. Alexander Macris has always been, he says she's already treated him well.
She's got that protection, and I don't like it.
Well, you may not like to protect. What I'm referring to, though, is everyone that I've talked to on either side of the spectrum has never said anything bad about her because she just comes off as a nice person. She doesn't.
I will give you that. I have no doubt that she is a nice person. But I did watch her run her own game with her wife and some other players, and it was awful. It was one of the most excruciatingly painful games I've ever watched. Even her wife, you could tell from her facial expression, did not want to be involved in this. But she doesn't have a choice because even though she worked on the project, she worked on it behind the scenes and not really, from what I understand, I could be wrong, with the playtest aspect, which I do believe needed more playtesting or just more of those 10,000 hours before she was ready to, call herself a quote unquote master. And it was really bad. 45 minutes for the characters to get out of a rowboat that was just cruising into shore, having to roll to get out of the boat.
To be honest, a rowboat. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but I saw Shauner play online on YouTube, and that was rough.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Well, considering he probably had a physical impairment, a liquid impairment in him, and God knows what else going on.
No, this was well before. This was
really?
probably the 2 years before. This was 2 years before. This was earlier on when he was before he really went off the deep end.
Okay, probably even before I met him.
No, I mean it was earlier. Maybe. It was probably he passed away last year. It was probably in 2021, 2022, somewhere around there before he really started going vacillating of just banning people and just going way off. But no, here's the reality. It's not any fun to watch role-playing games for the most part unless you're someone like Critical Role where they can do the voices and everything else. Just being honest, I hate watching live plays from just about everybody.
Yeah, I can't think too many, and I'm certain even my live plays aren't great, but I do.
I watched a little bit of yours, to be honest. I did watch a little bit of yours. I thought it was fine, but I knew most of the players. Like the only one guy there I did not really know all that well.
That's
but
George.
it fit for you guys. I mean, it just is what it is. Would I rather be gaming with you guys and watching? Of course, but you can say that about realistically any fucking sport or anything.
Sure. The only games I've really enjoyed watching and having fun with have been the Alien RPGs whenever they do their stuff. And that's because everyone knows their characters are probably going to die and they're laughing their heads off because they know how fragile they are. And it's a weird thing that you would think that the games where you're going to die the most are the ones where the players can be the most serious, and it's not. That was every time I've watched, where they do the Chariot of the Gods or something. It's always different. Doesn't matter, even though the module's the same. It's always different because the players do different things. People have slightly different missions on who's a betrayer and who it's not.
It sounds like that game Among Us. The kids are playing.
Oh, I was playing that literally right before, I jumped on to talk to you, at 7:30. I was playing that, and one of the people I was playing with, she lives in the house. She was renting a room from the guy who did Gloomhaven and Frosthaven. Isaac Childress. Yeah, it was, but it's funny because she's the sister of one of my friends from college from about almost 20 years ago now. But yeah, and that's who I was playing with. And he says, "Hey, I brought my sister in." It's like, "Oh, cool." He says, "Oh, by the way, she did this." My friend Billy has over 600 board games. His house is literally full of like Kickstarter after
Jesus.
Kickstarter. Yeah, I mean, we go over like, Billy, you going to IKEA? Yeah, I need to go get some more shelves for my games. I would kickstart more games, except I'm figuring it's just better for me to drive down to Houston and play for 2 nights or so than it is to have them here.
Did you back Planet of the Apes?
No, it's not my. No, Planet of the Apes isn't my thing. Are you talking about the RPG or the?
Yeah.
No, certain ones I feel are too limited. Like I don't mind.
Planet of the Apes. Okay, so obviously you're playing an ape of some time or a human, probably
Or orangutan.
Or
mutant.
Yeah.
And you, with humans, you got 2 types: the kinds that can speak and the kinds that can't.
What's the timeline on this?
It's got them all.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
The only
and,
one.
and okay, this is how geeky I am. When I was a kid, Planet of the Apes was the biggest thing, my favorite thing for years.
We all know.
Yeah.
And the dice tower it comes with is the Statue of Liberty.
That's kind of cool.
Okay. It's got a cloth map, it's got coins, it's got every bell and whistle you could possibly dream of, hardcover slipcase, miniatures, dice, just freaking everything. And every once in a while I could see like pulling that out and going, we're gonna do like a 1, 2, 3 shot and put it back up. It's just one of those things. Is it, I look at it like Monopoly. Every once in a while,
Sure,
it would be cool to play a game of Monopoly, maybe, or Battleship, or some board game. For us, a game like this is like a board game because it's more, you can put it away and you're not worried about, okay, we've been playing for 48 weeks now. I couldn't do that,
So,
40, a year-long freaking Planet of the Apes campaign. You'd have to be freaking super geeky about it.
If you did early days.
Well, so much of it depends on, if I'm going to do a fantasy style or sci-fi, I want as much variety as possible. I thought, to be honest, the Alien game would be pretty
super niche within a niche within a niche game.
But I mean, that's why I didn't get The Walking Dead. I didn't get. I bought Blade Runner, oddly enough, because that one looks like it's a good.
Blade Runner sounds like a lot of fun, but it's gonna have a limited run time before it's like, okay, this is like the 14th, 17th simulates, whatever they call them. That you chase down.
I'd be interested. I'd be interested if there's some way that you could hook in to the alien aspect.
Sure. I was going to say that as well.
So for the
and vice versa.
For the Blade Runner, when you look at, and this is what we're talking about, and this is what I like that they did with Alien as well. You have a cinematic version, which means that you have an adventure, you come in, you play the book, you get pre-generated characters, here you go, and you play the scenario out, and then you see how well you do, basically, is what it goes on to. And that to me works really well. And then you have the campaign version on top of that. And I said, okay. And so I know that the Alien one, I have 3 or 4 that do that. You have the Chariot of the Gods, you have the Destroyer, and then you have the Heart of Darkness. I was like, okay, cool. And they're each different things. One is you're transporting a freighter, and then you find this abandoned ship. That's the Chariot of the Gods. The second one, you're on. Go ahead. What?
I'm sorry, but you find an abandoned ship. You're like, oh, look, abandoned ship. You get back on your ship and you leave. Game's over, but everybody survives.
Well, they always do something that says you can't do that as much as you want to. That's. But you know what? You know what you're getting into, and sometimes it's easier to get people into playing a 5 or 6 session. Like I think that one would take about anywhere from 12 to about 24 hours. And you're like, oh, okay, guys, guess what? We're going to do this for 2 months. Good. Okay, I had my fill of it. Time to move on. And then
exactly my point. There are games like that. even for us, people who want to be in that year or 2 or 12-year campaign, every once in a while, it's like a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
When you've been playing this one game, for a very, very long time, and your DM's getting a little burnout, or people can't make it, so you have that side game,
Right.
because I'm in this one campaign where they're talking about that because we keep having issues with one or more people unable to show up, and the GM needs a break and stuff like that. It's nice to have these shorter, built games that are designed to not be, okay, this is our year commitment, or our new way of life game.
Well, even so, I know that they talk about Call of Cthulhu and stuff. I know that, like, Geekia, he's been running the Orient Express for it. And I said, well, that's just too much. I can't commit to that, but I can play, hey, I'll do one of the scenarios they have for Call of Cthulhu where I show up. I was like, okay, fine. If it takes 2 or 3 sessions, great. I can do that. I've been playing, the OSC games on Saturday mornings a lot of times, and those are show up if you feel like it. So I hadn't played in one of those games in like 6 months. Well, guess what? I just pulled out an old character, boom. And then we did the Appendix N, or not the Appendix N, Appendix A or so, with the random dungeons. And we just went from room to room to room, rolling randomly, with no DM per se.
Yeah, we were going to do that in Bo's game. We were going to. We've only got 3 characters. We were all going to run monks, lawful evil, neutral evil. I mean, and
they all have
lawful
to be
good, lawful neutral. Yeah, all 3 of the lawful alignments, and everything we owned would be communal, so we could bypass the you can only own 3 magic items kind of thing. Just throw it in the wheelbarrow.
Yeah. Well, you still are limited to a total of 9. I mean, when you look at it, it's just you share. But, well, and you can only, certain things you can't get, which is fine. It's, like I said, is some of these games are a lot of fun if you don't know what's going on with them, or you roll randomly. I don't mind, I don't mind having the GM, but man, how do I want to put this? The fun games are where I don't feel obligated to show up every week, every time. It's like, look, I have limited amount of time. I still want to go see my friends. I still have weekends.
I have
there's
kids.
Yeah, well, there's the other part. To be fair, is whenever they're going to shut down the government, that's when I'm planning taking my vacation. So it's well.
I was going to say, you work for the federal government. I mean, you might not have a job this coming Monday.
Well, you know what though actually, I just got the email I think this morning, and it says, "What did you do last week?" And I was like, "Well, last week I was traveling, but I talked to." But at the meeting, which was at a FEMA facility, so it's it's much people talk about that. It was the I was talking to this. Well, maybe I won't have a job, and she says, "Give us a call. They'll find a position for you." I was like, "Oh." This was a private company, and it's like, it's like, well, okay, it's kind of, but those are the things that happen if you're. That's why you want to get as much experience, and you want some variety, and it helps that, my resume has a fair amount of stuff on it.
Right, I got you.
It's well, when you start saying, okay, I've been overseas twice, I've been in 2 war zones, I did, the probably the most famous dam in the world besides Hoover. It was, you start talking about that. At the end of the day, you know what? It was a job. I enjoy it. I enjoy what I do. I'm not too worried about, but I have to write up what I did last week. I'm like, okay, I did this and this and this, but I was on travel. I said, why don't you ask me what I'm doing this week when I'm going to go inspect 10 dams? That's what I really need to do. What did you do today? I inspected 10 dams to make sure that they were safe. Who knows? And to be fair, the government needs a lot. There's a lot of money that's phantom money that's floating around, by my understanding, and no one knows where it is, and no one can spend it. But we're going to debt for it. Like there's probably hundreds of billions of dollars that we could cut because they're throwing money at something and can't spend it, but it doesn't count.
I recommend not shutting down the federal program that takes care of our nuclear, warheads, and that just seemed like a bad idea. I keep that one going.
Well, a lot of it was probationary. Probationary people who had been there less than a year. They cut all of those. Wait till October, and you'll probably find them trying to rehire a lot of those positions. But yeah,
just redundancy. And I know the government is a large pot.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who's in office. It is just redundancy.
No. A lot of it really comes down to this stuff should have been done 50 years ago. That's part of it. Is
50 years ago. That would have been what, Reagan?
Hell, that would have been Carter. That would have been Carter and Ford.
I was going to say Nixon.
No, I mean, my parents have been complaining about this. My grandparents were complaining about some of the stuff from the 50s. This is not new. The problem is that no one actually wanted to address it.
Or admit it.
Well, no. What I mean by addressing is that there are programs out there that are zombie programs, and Congress doesn't go in and says, hey, this should be cut. And they just keep getting money. And they keep just getting money. And then people and the way government works is you have to spend all the money you're given. Otherwise, they cut your money. So it encourages the wrong things. And it's like, okay, well, this agency's just been floating out there, ignoring all the other stuff that people talk about. And so they become a zombie agency. This agency hasn't really done anything. And to be fair, you may have been kind of young for this, Connell, but in the 1990s, in the 1980s, they were complaining about having scientists that measured the speed of ketchup.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
And you're like, we don't need that. It was like, well, this is important. I said, the only reason they do that is to determine whether ketchup is fancy or not. Like, I don't need someone to tell me if it's fancy ketchup. Most people don't even know.
Okay.
Fancy is in how viscous the ketchup is.
But ketchup is ketchup. I mean, I'm sorry. I work in, that's my career. I mean,
yeah.
Ketchup is ketchup unless you add a secret ingredient to make your secret sauce not ketchup. Ketchup is fucking ketchup. Corn syrup, tomatoes.
No. Yeah, but what I'm saying is, on the front where it says fancy ketchup,
yeah,
that's a viscosity, so it's on how fast it moves.
That's so fucking dumb.
Okay. That's our point. Is there are certain jobs we don't need because like you said, if I'm going to buy ketchup and it runs too fast, I won't buy that ketchup brand. I'll buy a different one. I don't need the government to tell me, oh, you have to meet this to meet a fancy ketchup. I'm like, no.
And why not use a better term? You know what I mean? Because it's easy to misconstrue that term for something that it already exists.
Yes, but I'm saying that was the term that they picked. And they had to have a government now I assume they got rid of it, but they had to have a government scientist to verify whether that ketchup was fancy or not, was depending on how fast it would go down a slope. I kid you not. That's and like Connell here, who is a chef, is like, that's fucking ridiculous. And it is. And those are the things that, government's gotten too much into there. And then it's, well, but we have to have it. Like, no. You're right. Nuclear programs, absolutely. But some of them are going, okay, but you also need to have the ability, which I don't know if you remember the scandal for the U.S. military, where, it was where they were cheating on their scores because they couldn't get advanced. They would put them into the nuclear arsenal, and then these guys would never get promoted.
I kind of remember something.
Oh, it was a huge scandal. Because instead of doing their paperwork, they just copied off of each other instead of making sure they really learned it. And you're just going, okay, if that's really the issue where people can get promoted, then give them a bunch of extra money. Hey, guess what? If you go in this area, we're going to give you a $50,000 bonus, or something. You just give.
I mean, I know it's not exactly the same, but if I'm already get a job at a warehouse, right? I'm just going to use this for reference.
Sure.
Is like, well, we'll pay you $10 an hour if you're working a day. Okay. Yeah. But if we'll pay you $13, it's much, much more now. I'm just from personal experience. $13 an hour if you work from like 10 to 7 o'clock in the morning. What's the
Right.
pay difference? Hazard pay. Oh, okay. Because bad shit happens when people are tired.
Well, and part of it just comes down to people don't want to work in those times either. Because I remember working night shifts, and
Yep.
it was very hard to get people to work those hours. But the other, well,
Because
in
you
this
miss
case,
out on everything else in life.
well, the nuclear
yeah.
programs, what I'm referring to in this case is that they couldn't get promoted. So they were kind of stuck in that 04 with a maximum of 05 positions. So so they watched their peers that went, that they graduated with, those guys would get the ranks and they did not. And I said, well, the way to balance that out is like, okay, those guys are going to advance faster, but you're going to make more money. And that's what I mean by that. It's like, oh, okay, I don't have to make.
I get you.
Yeah, I don't have to make colonel, but when I leave, if I only make major, but I make just as much money as the colonel would. It's very similar to, any kind of specialty work. It's like doctors. You're going to pay a doctor more than you will an infantry soldier, just because it's not that both aren't valuable. It's just one takes a lot more skill, and if you don't pay accordingly, they aren't going to go in that position. Those are just things that go into it, and I really wish that. There's one size fits all, and we'll see. At the end of the day, like I said, this is going to be the shock and awe, and it's like, all right, that's fine. But my father asked me one point, like, son, why did you leave that job in government and go pick one that has more work? I said, well, Dad, at some point they're going to be cutting jobs, is what I told him. This was 2 years ago. I said, and I don't want to be the one that says I can barely justify what I'm doing. So it's like, oh yeah, I'll go do this. And, but I think a lot of people forgot about that. The same thing about working from home. They assumed you could keep working from home forever. And I always assumed that was a temporary thing. And so, it's like,
what? To work from home is just like literally the only person in her company who still gets to work from home. And that's mostly so she can put in massive amounts of overtime because they won't hire someone else to do her job and, to help her with her job. And I'm like, job security, right now with the way things are going and they do government contracts and things like that. Count your blessings.
Oh, well, I just thought it's funny because, they were talking about, and I also listen to a lot of stuff, but I've done contracts and they're like, you can't cancel this contract. And I said, every contract in the government says can be canceled for the convenience of the government. It's specifically what it says. It's like, okay. And the big problem a lot of times is you have people that write the scopes of work and they're just poor. They aren't sure what they're doing. And I've been caught with this too. This is why you want experience in there. But you have to say, okay, what's the scope of work? You have to well define it. What's the goal? There's a PWS, an SOW, and there's another one. It's like, okay, but so many people forget about this stuff, and they're all screaming, "I deserve to have this." Like, we serve at the pleasure of the American people. There's a reason that I like working in dams and dam safety. Great, but sometimes it's hard to justify what I do because it's not well defined. I do whatever they ask, which is great, but maybe the government should define what I'm supposed to be doing rather than, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just we're trying to figure out on how to do things at the moment. I said, well, if our sponsors ask for help, we give it to them. But now if you're going to track it, then we need to have a ticketing system or something like that. But there's a lot of stuff that can be done that can be automated. I find it ridiculous that they were putting how many people could retire, and they limited the number of people that could retire in a year based on how much they could go into the limestone cave. It was like, really? They do that? Why isn't this all automated? Why don't they scan it in? It's just like, why in the world do I have to fill out a piece of paperwork that worked good for 30 years and they change it up and they put 12 more items on there and they're like, it can't be processed. Like, we just did this last year. Yeah, it's cut my paperwork. That's all I'm asking. Department of Government Efficiency, cut my damn paperwork. That would make my life better. That would make everyone's lives better, more efficiently. Anyway, sorry about that. I don't want to play role-playing game the bureaucracy.
Some games, are built for the bureaucracy. What you just said, man. Yeah. Diving down that thought a little bit further, I found myself in a career that Well, I'm not gonna get fired. Everybody needs to eat.
Yeah,
I might lose the current clients, but I'll find other clients.
sure. How you been holding up, Connell? Because I haven't talked to you in a while.
Uh, well, you know about the cancer.
No, I knew a little bit. Yeah, a little bit about
I,
the
I, I
lung
had to
cancer.
deal with that. It breaks. You know what a lung cyst is? Lung cyst.
Yes, yep.
That's more or less what I had.
Okay, that's not too bad then.
Scary, but not as bad as it could be. I bought into a cigar lounge slash shop, so I'm part owner.
Okay, how's that going?
It's fun. I didn't think it was going to be a fucking job, but it is. Uh, I have an employee, which is also kind of fun and weird for me, but is what it is. Uh, I've been wanting to get hold of you to reschedule, get back into doing our movie reviews. I'm thinking maybe every other Sunday
Okay,
instead
we'll
of
see. Yeah, I'll try.
Sundays are really hard for us with church and my Saturday game.
And
that's
your Sunday game.
also that's why I was also thinking about you guys. Maybe there's another day of the week that might work better. I know I'm out Mondays and Wednesdays.
Friday evenings works best for me.
Yeah, Friday's rough because I'm in Bo's game.
Has that got any better?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yeah,
No. I no. I mean, I got so fed up with it. I was getting so frustrated. I left with this term that I did not want to play eBay the role playing game. Was my last statement for that. It was just yeah.
He's had a little bit of some issues, and he needs to loosen up a little and have some fun at it.
Sure.
It seems to me that what he really needs is a break and get into somebody else's game that will play a game that he's suited for, so he can cut loose and see what it's like on the other side. Because for me, I hadn't played in decades
Yeah.
upon meeting you guys, and I still I went for 2 years thanks to you guys of playing and not DMing, and it was a huge eye opener.
Well, part of it is when Bo's on, he's on. He is, but he wants that level of realism and detail that I'm like, it's just not that much fun because I say I want to do something. He's like, well, describe it. I'm like, I'm not a doctor and I'm playing a doctor in the game. It's like, well, where are you going to put the suture? Where are you going to do this? And I'm like, whoa, I'm not trying to study to be a med student. Hey, I'm going to bandage him up. Hey, I'm going to, we're going to perform surgery, remove the bullets. I didn't want to go through every step on how I was going to remove the bullet. And that was part of it.
Exactly. I mean, I play characters that I have no experience doing in real life. Sometimes I'm playing a character that I have a lot of real world experience. But when I play a wizard, no, I just want to blast shit and make magic items and do the magic stuff. But
I like playing archers because I know the mechanics of archery.
That's true, but I don't want to say, well, I'm going to fire it at 15 degrees.
Oh no, and I get that.
Yeah,
I've had arguments with DMs, and it's not really honestly. None of them's gotten heated. I'm more or less at the end of it say, whatever. Let's just continue with the game because I just don't care enough to be completely honest. But somebody's like, well, you can't sleep in chainmail. I'm like, bullshit, you can't. I've slept in chainmail. You can sleep in leather armor as well. What you can't sleep in isn't plate.
No, you can sleep in plate. Trust me, I've slept in with plate carriers and stuff on myself.
Plate armor.
He needs like a knight in shining armor.
I'm going to bring it this way, which people forget about. What you can't do is you can't get a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
There's a difference because
Right.
I have seen so many soldiers with a whole pack and stuff, and they just like kind of fall over and fall asleep for that brief period of time. So it's not that, and the systems I like said, hey, look, during this time you can't recover from being fatigued while you do it, and if you do it for more than X number of days, you become fatigued from it. Like, oh, okay, that's fair, but it doesn't mean you aren't sleeping. You still get your sleep, and you can get some rest for it.
Right.
But
that's why you always play elves.
Elves don't get that ability if they're in BX. That's only AD&D. See, I told you AD&D
that's
is
a
the
D&D
easy
thing.
that's
D&D and Pathfinder thing.
that's
but no, I've done medieval reenactment for years now, going on 20 fucking years. In my younger, not so fat days, I used to take a nap, in chainmail and wake up just fucking fine. It's like sleeping with a weighted blanket on. It's and it moves with you. Leather, it's a little bit more confining, but I'd add that up to like sleeping in a fucking sleeping bag.
Well, at the end of the day, a lot of it just comes down to, you're going to sleep wherever you can. As I get older and older, I'm like, yeah, I'll pay more for a bed. I want more pillows. I want this. But when I was a kid, I would sleep on the floor in like the most uncomfortable
I've literally
crap.
fallen asleep in the shower.
Yeah.
If you're tired enough, you will.
Oh no, there's been moments as an adult with my back hurts. I'm just kind of getting to that point. Or I grab a really thick, fluffy pillow, throw it in the small of my back, lay down on the ground, and take a fucking nap. And I'm perfectly fucking fine. But telling me I can't do something, but I can in the really real world. And this is supposed to be fucking fantasy. The really real world should not,
Right. No, I agree with you. But no, again, like I said, is because they used to laugh at me because I'd fall asleep in the body armor when I was having, like 40 pounds of plates on me, with the plate carrier. They're like, well, how did you do that? And I said, you feel confined. You're in the car. I'm strapped in. I can't move anywhere. And I just fell asleep, and it was just hard. And they're like, well, and that's with a helmet. It's like, okay, look, people just forget about it. Now, am I going to say it was the most comfortable? No. Did I have a crick in my neck? Yes. You did have some of that, but
and there's another thing, they forget, and I know this not from recent experience, but from previous experience, they drank a lot of alcohol back then. And alcohol will let you sleep through anything.
Well, the other part is if you actually look, because water was poisonous for the most part, and so whenever I know, yeah, but I mean,
I was just making an alcohol joke, not a dig at.
I was about to say, were you poking fun of me? I mean,
no, I do. I guarantee you, I drank more than my fair share.
Okay, I was already saying, when was the last time you see me when was the last time on screen have you seen me with a beer, any kind of alcohol in my hand?
It's been it's been about a year.
Time, but
the medicine I'm on right now just says no bueno, and I'm like, I rather spend time with my kid than being drunk,
or dead,
or dead.
Yep.
Oh,
there's. Go ahead.
There's nothing you don't know. I have my daughter now full fucking time.
No, you did tell me that. You did tell me that because you moved this new place, and that's I think the last time I talked to you, and you said you had her full time.
I have my daughter full time, which she is a great daughter. She is wonderful. She is smart. She is quiet to a certain degree. I am worried that I'm not going to be able to. Okay. How should I put this? Normal teenagers, I kind of, I remember being a teenager. I know and normally with some teenagers, I can see where they're going to break bad, which direction they're going to go to.
Right.
With my daughter, she doesn't like alcohol. She doesn't like tobacco. She thinks pot smells. She's not into, So I'm like, I don't have to worry about her coming home at 16 saying, Daddy, I'm pregnant because of her current thought processing.
Well, see, well, you're talking about that with yours. With my son, I'm not worried about that. Shadow's son's gonna be very similar. It's like, okay, but like with my son, his mother will complain about him at times, and it's just because he does his own thing, and he doesn't want to have to do her thing, and she gets mad because, he needs to do this and he needs to do that. So you're not giving him enough authority for himself. But man, that kid, he'll work with me for 6 or 7 hours straight. Well, we'll break for lunch and we'll do hard manual labor. And he enjoys it and he has fun. And, it's like, okay, son, you're allowed to make fun of me. Yeah, most kids I think are pretty good. I think, I actually talk to him as like a human being.
Right. There's a trick, talking to your kids.
Well, see, that's why boys should be raised by men and girls should be raised by women. It's that simple.
If I find somebody dumb enough to marry my ass, we'll talk about it then. But I disagree with that. Having my
I'm not
ex,
saying 24/7.
Oh,
well,
yeah.
I'm going to put it this much: it's important to have a father in a child's life. That's something in there. I think it's important to have a mother in a child's life.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's a 60-40 split depending on the gender.
I also think it depends on the fucking kid though too, as well.
Yeah, it does. But
I suppose maybe, but I think as a blanket statement, I think 60-40 works.
Yeah. It's 60% the father and 40% the mother. Once they're past,
or vice versa.
Once they're past 8 o'clock. Once they're past age 8. Before then, it's mostly the mom. But after that, it really needs a lot more of the father.
If my daughter is going to be starting high school next year, whenever I'm cooking dinner, she's in the kitchen with me, helping me knock it out.
Oh, yeah. That'll last a little while longer, and then.
Oh, I know.
You'll be the devil.
Well, you know what? The other thing I did with my son is I said, guess what? If there's a rule, you're allowed to call me out on it if I break said rule. And that has made a huge difference.
She asked me what, me being Catholic and her mom being Unitarian Universalist, a UU. She asked me, why have you, her mom's been pushing her church on her.
Yeah.
I was like, why haven't you been pushing, Catholic on me? I'm like, well, it's not that I don't want you to go to church with me, because I love for you to church with me. But I know enough kids who've grown to be adults that their parents force them to go to church every Sunday and Wednesday to have absolutely nothing to do with the freaking church or their religion. I rather you find God on your own terms.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes and no. There's a few things. There's a few paths of exploration I won't tolerate.
There's always that line. There's always that line. But if you have parents that force, you have no thought, you have no ability to have any thought but their thought when it comes to religion down your throat from age whatever to you're a grown up, you're going to want nothing to do with that church. I've seen it 101 fucking times.
I wouldn't know because I had the exact opposite, and I had to find it on my own.
Also be, I can see how that happens because, well, I mean, your parents were probably great people. Don't get me wrong. You're a great person, and that tends to happen if you have good parents. I have horrible parents, so I'm an asshole. I get it. I truly understand. I'm sorry, Omanow says he likes listening to people. They're nice to other people. I'm like, why the fuck does he hang out with me? I get it. I don't, but
Well, you have to realize something at the end of the day, because exactly the same thing that you did. My father and I fought a lot over church because I did not want to go in. We did not see eye to eye. I said, look, I actually enjoyed it when I have real discussions about it, but sitting there and having someone just lecture to me has never worked. I want this to be an interactive and say, okay, what does this Bible mean? And I say this to someone that really enjoyed listening to Jordan Peterson go over Exodus and Genesis, because they went way deep beyond anything that other people have done. And
what was his name?
Jordan Peterson, the psychologist.
Yeah, I've seen
the Canadian guy who sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. He did it on Genesis and Exodus, and it was something like between those two, it was something like 60 something hours. I said, oh, okay. I enjoyed that a lot because it was like a real discussion. What were they talking about? What do these things mean? And I talked to my friends who are Jewish, and they're like, oh yeah, if they wouldn't translate all these names, what I mean is, if they put down what the name meant more than just what the name was, it makes so much more sense in the Bible. Like, oh, okay. Do I have to agree with everything? No, but there are important stories in there, just like every mythology has important stories, and I love to hear those. This is why I look at the newest generation. We're talking about 5e, which is, to me, 5e is Harry Potter, and I'm not knocking it, but that's what those kids grew up on for their fantasy. Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings movies were the two things that they based their experiences for D&D. When we were growing up as kids, we had, Sinbad, Conan. Well, I'm talking about the comics and stuff like this as well.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we had
the Harryhausen movies.
Yes, which was the Sinbad stuff. I grew up on all the mythology, and so you can tell the differences between the two games based
as well
off,
as books.
Yeah, based off just the types of books, and like we're doing the Appendix N every so often. Okay, that's great. I'm still trying to get through the Elric stuff. I don't like the third book because now he's dealing with where he's fighting against law rather than chaos, which is interesting unto itself. But like, okay, that's where they're starting to split into it. But like, okay, what type of game do I want to replicate? And that's great. But even their cartoons are different. Their anime. It's like, all right, everyone, regardless of what game it is what are you growing up with? Just like I thought it was funny is the Legend of the Five Rings. They have a 5e version, and they have a the 5e. Then they have the Legend of the Five Rings Fantasy Flight version. I didn't get the other ones. The 5e is more of like how I grew up with Shogun and Ran and all the other stuff. And of course, they do have the fantastic stuff, but they have that aspect. The 5e version is, oh, well, be careful about using seppuku. And I went, this is like core parts of, the Shogun aspect, but they want to, oh, no, that can cause people to have negative feelings and everything else. Stop babying these children.
I was actually agreed with Kai last time I did one of Kai's musings. So this was about 2 weeks ago. Fifth edition D&D, basically in one of their books printed out what a ogre society looks like. So they're just not mindless brutes, but actually showed what an ogre society is. Doesn't mean they're all good people or anything like that. Just shows you what they're like. I think that's fucking awesome. I like knowing more than it's like a 2-line page. Orcs are big green mindless monsters. I'm like, that's no fun. Where was it Gatekeepers? Me and Shadow went kind of round, but on one of the questions he asked is like, what is your favorite? What is your favorite villain to throw at your party? I'm like, humans. What? Why? Because I know what a human's like. I know there's bad fucking people out there. I don't know what a 2-line creature is going to be like. I don't know that thought processing, but I know what humans will do.
Right, but that's see, a lot of people miss the point of the alignment system. Okay, when you're talking about like the monster manual or monsters in the monster manual, and it says chaotic evil, that means their whole society is chaotic evil. Okay, it forces you to think how could a chaotic evil society function, and how do you?
I'm going to bring up something. When we're talking about the alignment, the Drow were very interesting when they first came out. The problem is that they made them player characters, and then everyone wanted to do it because I want to be edgy and stuff like that. I said this to someone that did it because they got all these special powers that vastly outclassed elves. They did. And so everyone, as soon as the Unearthed Arcana came out, everyone played one. And it was like, look, it doesn't make the game necessarily more fun for that aspect. And they were higher powered, which kind of bugged me for the whole thing. But the orcs, most people that are growing up with orcs now grew up with the World of Warcraft
which is not the way they are.
Well, I'm not saying they are. They aren't.
How they were originally designed.
Well, the Warcraft 2 orcs are different. That's where they came out of. The Warcraft 2 orcs are different than the ones that they had before. I said, okay, that's fine. But that's what people are gravitating on because that's what they grew up with. Whereas we grew up with orcs being from Lord of the Rings. Okay, that's a whole different aspect, and which were corruptions of elves. Um, they were inherently evil, and they did flesh out more and more of them when you started going to the Unearthed Arcana and stuff. If you started reading, they started fleshing out the background. And part of the thing is they kept that lore right up until, and I still have the old books for 5e. They had it, and they're like, "Oh no, we're afraid to do this. We're going to remove this. We're going to remove slavery. We're going to remove that." And I went, every literature I've written that I've read, there's slavery. The hero gets made into a slave. How many number of times? I don't care whether it's Conan or Tarzan or there was always slavery, and it was not a black and white thing. Literally, it was this society enslaves this society, and guess what? Our hero gets thrown in with the same ones that are in there. Conan got put in the chains and the slaves, just like whenever you watch Ben-Hur and
multiple
stuff.
times.
Yeah. Well, Ben-Hur was a slave, fell from being a prince to a slave. That there's so much of it out there. It's like because it makes a great story, and I think that's part of the problem. I've been.
It's one more horrible thing that the hero can overcome to be even more of a hero.
Right.
And hopefully in the process, maybe, try to, free some people with him, or maybe even, as per Dark Sun, abolish the entire concept in this nation and then maybe the next nation. I mean, there's nothing more heroic than bringing freedom to the downtrodden and taking that challenge away because you're afraid to hurt some people's feelings who've never experienced it. But, had they had the opportunity to experience it in a role-playing game situation where they could fight against that kind of injustice, I mean, that's one of the most heroic things you can do. And taking it away just makes it easier for the next country that wants to start bringing that back.
Well, and, a lot of people forget there's each society has its own, what type of slave are you looking at? Are you looking, which people all forget about, the Ottoman Empire with the Janissaries? The Janissaries, where they took the Christian children and made them into the elite fighting force. They were all effectively slaves.
The Celts did it. The Vikings did it. The Egyptians did it. Everybody's did it at one point.
Everybody's done it. We came to America, and the natives were doing it.
Well, but
they didn't need our help. You know what I mean? They were like the equivalent of isolated here in North America, and they were doing it without anybody saying, "Hey, this is a thing you can do." They'd already figured it out.
But that's the whole point. When we were reading that one book where they're talking about, they have the trolls, they've enslaved the dwarves. It gives your character something to fight over. It gives them motivation. And that's part of the problem that I look at a lot of this is they're taking away some of the negative aspects, which, okay, we're not saying that we're not pro any of this, but you're removing the ability of your hero to become heroic. That's the whole point of it is I want you to strive towards something. And in certain ways, I do get...
And it's a test of one's moral character. I mean, if you see it and you don't get upset when the DM says you're seeing it, then the DM's like, "Oh, okay, you're okay with that then. Okay, I got you. That's fine, But if you do get upset and you still can't do anything about it, that still keeps you in the good category as opposed to sliding over to neutral, then over to evil.
There's certain things that are in there. It's like, okay, you can't save everyone, but you can start saving some of them, and you can start going over here, and hey, we'll treat people better.
You could create the Underground Railroad on your D&D planet. But if you take that stumbling block away and there's none of it, then what is there? Oh, well, you're not going to have the graping because that's going to trigger people. You're not going to have genocide because that triggers people. Then what's left that defines you as a hero for you to overcome or vanquish or defeat? If they take out all the things that are offensive, then there's nothing. You're a hero because what? You let a little old lady in front of you in line at the barista,
So Well, I mean, look at
What's left? You got to have some bad stuff.
I mean, look at one of the famous set of modules out there, the A1 through 4 against the slavers. Now, are the modules perfect? No. I mean, but A4 is classic for that. Your characters get caught, they get thrown into the effectively the tunnels below during an earthquake, and they have to get out at a certain time. And part of what they do is when they come out, then they get their chance to kill off the slavers that they've been fighting against forever. Which was I like, okay, cool. That's what you want to do. We get the big battle at the end, and it's satisfying.
It's right there in the title, against the.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
Not becoming the.
Oh, yeah.
Siding with the. It's against the. It just weakens us as a species when they do these things, and it's almost like they're trying exactly to do that.
Well,
let's make us all soft again. No, we're never soft.
Well, part of it just comes down to, it's like, well, and this was one of the nice things. When you start realizing it's a cosmological battle, and D&D is a cosmological battle between groups, that's why you have different alignments. There's a reason that in the most basic one, which is law, neutral, and chaos for your BX, which in some ways I think is easier to do than when you start doing the 9 alignments.
Yeah, but it's too vague.
That's intentional. That's intentional, though.
Because you could be chaotic and good.
No, you can't.
Well,
no. No. What we're talking about here is when you start looking at that, it's similar to what you have with Warhammer. What is chaos? Chaos may have some of its purpose, but it is completely destructive, and it's deprivation and stuff like that. Again, when you do the 9 alignment system, then at a certain point, it's like, well, that's when you start getting into. There's probably been more fights over that than there has been law, neutral, and chaos. To be fair,
but see, I mean, I got to have the good and evil in it. You know what I mean?
Well, that is law is good, chaos is evil. Boom. There is none of this. See, you're remember you grew up with the 9 alignment system just like I did, but when you actually look at, like, if you go read the BX, it really should have been defined as good, neutral, and evil. But the way that they're doing it is they're just calling it law, neutral, and chaos.
That's exactly what I was thinking before you said it. It's like, why didn't they just do what it really is, good, neutral, and evil?
Because of Moorcock with Elric, because that's what they define law.
I suppose maybe that, and trying to get away from the Satanic Panic. No.
This was BX. This was BX. We're talking 1981. So this is like right before the Satanic Panic started hitting.
You think?
Yeah. The Satanic Panic really seemed to hit like A2, A3 when they did the Mazes and Monsters and all the other stuff, and that's
because I remember hearing grumblings amongst the mothers as far back as I could remember.
Well, the grumblings have been going on, just like they were screaming about Harry Potter teaching the kids to become, worshiping wizards and stuff. And I went, no, I don't see my son doing that. And I'm sure they were complaining about Star Wars with the Force.
Well, to be fair, though, I literally did see people who started playing D&D and then started dabbling in the other things.
I don't doubt that. I'm not saying that the people did. I did too. I did too. I'm not saying that that people did not, but but at the end of the day, if I look at my friends who were all playing D&D and what they did, they all became probably better people than a lot of their peers because they were used to fighting against good and evil, and there was a clear moral aspect to what they were doing.
It's amazing how today. So many of the people I know refuse to play anything but good characters in this game.
Well, here's part of it from my perspective. I'm not saying that we're perfect, but whenever we're playing, I don't like evil parties for part of the reason is unless you have a lot of kickback to it, certain games like if I play Shadowrun, I'm almost always playing a neutral evil character. Um, just because no, I mean it's just the way that sometimes the game encourages the play style. But for D&D, being good means you have challenges to overcome. You have foes to fight. If you're going to play evil, that's kind of playing the game on an easy mode, unless you really play the backstabbing aspect.
I just like being
Yeah,
evil.
because it's ridiculous to think that there's going to be a group of evil characters that are going to have each other's back.
I'm not saying that they aren't, because you can see some of them, but more if you're going to do the morally ambiguous guys, I think that works better for certain, like the World of Darkness, where
For a while.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But for me, part of the aspect is like, look, if you're going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons or something, I want you guys to be on the side of good, because the side of good needs heroes. It needs heroes far more than it needs villains. The world is full of villains.
Exactly.
And if you're just going to be another villain, and I'm not saying you can't do it sometimes.
I did it for 20 years. I ran a 20-year plus evil campaign. Trust me.
Yeah, you told me.
It's
But the problem that I have with it is some people, when they want to be evil, really go beyond the like stop, no, we're done. There's some people.
I think what they really want to do is play these selfish alignments from Palladium.
Yes, and to me, in that case, then play the neutral character. Who, Conan was not a good character if you really look at it, but Conan had his good moments. And that's what I'd rather see. If you're going to do that, that's what I want to see. Is I want to see the reluctant hero. Just like we were talking about with the like Casablanca with Rick. Yeah. It's like, well, I have an inkling of good in me, but I've become so jaded I don't want to get involved anymore. And it's like, okay, you're the reluctant hero is the phrase that I like to see for some of them. But if you're playing D&D, and this is why I like Axe, it actively encourages you to build up, to conquer, to form a kingdom, and then watch the kingdom, go from there. And I said, that's the one thing D&D did some of, but it never really leaned into it as much as it should have. And it felt like you're talking about, oh, well, once you get to a certain level, yeah, you go to the domain level play, but they didn't emphasize as much of the domain level play as I wish that they had. And Axe has fixed a lot of that.
But the problem, what the problem is that in today's current environment, the likelihood that you're actually going to get to the second or third stage of Axe or even a D&D game is almost non-existent.
I hear that all the time. And I run, and we don't quit until a lot of the times we don't quit until the module is done, and that can be anywhere from.
What we're talking about is when your character owns a castle, is the king, and what is he doing now?
That is.
Nobody wants to run it, even though lots of people want to be there and play it. It's really hard to run it as a DM.
I'm going to be a little bit different from there, which is, and to be fair on some of this, is the D&D, depending on how you run it. And I've been playing with my party here, and it's been hard to get them up certain levels. And we've been doing one treasure. That said, you know what? They're kind of kick-ass even at third or fourth level. And for Axe, first edition. Well, this is Axe, so it's like BX. So we're talking even at third level, and we've noticed even at fifth level, once you start getting up there, and what I do like about with Axe is I think it's done a better job for fleshing out the Conqueror aspect, which is your 5th through 9th level, and then they have the domain level once you get up to 9th plus. You only go up to 14th level, but you're pretty kick-ass at 14th level. I think some of it really just comes down to, and I know I was listening to the interview with Mike Merles and Dungeon Craft, so the Dungeon Professor. He said, yeah, we have all the data, people only play for 6 sessions or something. And it's not that people don't want to play longer. It's trying to keep people together to play those long-term games is the hard part. I don't want to say that what bothers me about 5th edition for the most part is they don't have that. They didn't have it in 3.5. They got away from it even in 2, 2nd edition D&D.
Yep.
They talk about 1st edition had more of it.
Except for battle systems.
Well, they did battle systems, but I can say as much. Battle systems didn't quite work like it should have. It really needed a bit more refinement, and the way that by that time I think Lorraine Williams was in place and she didn't want people playing the games. I was like, how in the world are you supposed to play test stuff if you aren't playing the game? Anyway, but
hey guys, I gotta call it.
Okay.
I got church in the morning.
All right, take care, man.
Good talking to you guys, and I gotta pee. So
yeah, okay.
I will talk to you later. Take care. Love you guys.
All right, see you later, Shadow. Connor, what have you been up to besides that? Well, since Shadow's going to be leaving us.
Just kind of slowly getting back into the YouTube aspect. I kind of took a break there for a while.
Yeah, we were
all high and dry. I was just not doing well.
No, I mean, take care of your stuff. I know that you'd show up. Sometimes you need to have things like I got to go to bed. I got to get up early in the morning.
Okay.
That's this one I don't mind too much. But like tomorrow, I told Shaq I won't play this game because I have to get up at 4:00, and then I'm going to be out for the whole week. Well,
I get it.
Yeah, no, I mean it's one of those things like as much as people talk about it, I enjoy work, but it means I leave at 6 in the morning so I can get up there by about 9:30. I can start my inspections probably around 10 or so. And then if I can get 1 or 2 done tomorrow, Monday, that'd be great. And then I'll probably do 3 on the other days. 3, and 3, and then come back on Friday. And it's like, all right. And you leave early in the morning. It's like, okay, because it takes 3 hours to get to a lot of places I want to get.
That's fair.
And sometimes it takes 3.5 hours to get back from the places I want to. So you're like,
yeah,
all right,
get that.
It's going to be 4 hours up, 4 hours back, an hour for lunch, and 4 hours there trying to do my work. So, not that I was good at that every day. This time I'm going to stay overnight, but a lot of times we'll be up. Like, okay, I got to go look at one dam. All right, well that's going to take several hours, and then we're going to head back. But yeah, it's like okay, leave at 6. I'll be home at 7. Yeah.
Jesus. I don't know. I've just been kind of. Like I said, I've been kind of doing the YouTube thing again. As Tal says, one more cigar for the night. So, the tagline when I end the show is either "fuck you, Condor" or "cigar's gone, so I'm gone." I'm going
to ask you this much because you say you've been playing in several games.
Yeah.
You've been playing. I know Warhammer. How have you enjoyed that?
We took a little bit of a hiatus on that one, but when I was playing it, I had fun. It was different.
Yeah.
There's aspects of that game I don't like, but I like the people I'm gaming with, so I will overlook the irritations.
So what were your irritations with Warhammer? The reason I mentioned that is Pathfinder just hasn't appealed to me, but I know you're a big Pathfinder person, but I was going to ask you your view towards other games. That's why I was asking about the Warhammer one.
There is no, as of right now, and I could be wrong, but I play an archer in that game. Surprise, surprise. And I don't get one shot per turn, where the blade users get like 2 swings. I'm like, how long do you think it takes to reload a bow?
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be a professional archer. How fast do it takes you more time, depending on the weapon, it takes you more time for the second swing than it is for me to grab an arrow and launch it.
No, I agree with you on that. And I know Shadow, he loves AD&D because he grew up with it, but I've played several different versions, and my favorite is Axe this moment because one of the things that they have is if you kill the monster, you have the ability to attack again. And if you kill that monster, you can attack another one. So it allows you to kill a lot of low-level monsters very quickly. So you can chew through kobolds like there's no tomorrow, which is a lot of fun.
The Barbarian in 5th edition has a variation of that. If you kill the enemy that you are, the one guy you have a bonus attack, extra attack to swing at the next guy. I
Yep.
can never chain them,
Yeah.
but mechanics doesn't say I couldn't do that. You said use kobolds, right? For example, if I kill a
Yeah.
kobold and then kill the one next to it, in theory, within that turn, I should get a third bite at the apple. But
So, and again, this has 40 years of experience to go through with it. And I looked at it, but you get to cleave. So like a thief cleaves every 2 levels. So if you're at like level 10, you get 5 cleaves. If you're a fighter, you get 1 every level. So you get up to 10 cleaves. You can do something called a sweep, which allows you to attack multiple monsters at once. So if they're like really low level and you have a good weapon and a good strength, you can be cleaving like 3 kobolds with each strike. If you kill 2 kobolds, you can attack again, so you get another cleave. So you can be wiping out like 20 of them per round. And they allow you to do that with bows and stuff like that. Now, certain bows have a limitation in the number of times allowed to shoot, like crossbows and stuff like that. But man, you can like really just like chew through them if they don't have good armor and you're pretty good at hitting things. Which
yeah,
is
me and Bruce have gone round and round on a few things when it comes to archery. Because I don't like rapid shot. No, show me proof that an archer could put like 5 arrows down the line. I'm like, here's an arrow. Here's a video of this guy named Lars Anderson,
oh yeah, I love his stuff.
and yeah, he does more than 5. And he's like, well, he is a expert marksman. I'm like, so technically is my character. I can't do it in real life, but in theory, my character should be able to. Hence the feat rapid shot.
Well,
But
yeah, I agree with you. Well, you look at how many times you're hitting. Part of the problem that I had with, when I'm playing in Shadow's game for this, is that they've made specialization for bows more powerful than melee attacks. It does double damage, whereas your melee attack does not do double damage.
I don't think a bow should do double damage. I mean, in theory, blade will do more damage to a human body than an arrow will. Arrow will puncture a body, and depending on the strength of the bow and the material of the arrowhead, per se, I'm using real life stuff.
Yeah. No, I know.
You could punch through a fucking animal, or a person. But if you get a hold of somebody with, let's say, a sword that has an amazing fucking edge, in fantasy, you should just be able to cleave right through the poor bastard. Okay. So for the 3 people who are watching us, thank you for hanging out as long as you have. Please say something. Let me know that you're interested, and I'll wait for Omenau to get back from whatever he's doing.
Sorry about that, Connell. I thought you could go a little bit longer.
No.
No. I agree with you. Some certain weapons, I really wish. I'm not against a lot of them. I think it's just some of the. Whenever people are playing with games, is they either want to be too realistic, which is what happened with Bo, and sometimes they want it so abstract you just feel disconnected. And every system's different for these things.
Let me go watch like a season of ER or House or something has doctor related. Then I'll go play a doctor's character, and even then, no, maybe like 4% of what this character would probably really fucking know.
I know. No, but I'm saying that certain people want different levels of immersion, and certain games I think do better levels of immersion than others.
Right.
But so what else bothers you about Warhammer? Just out of curiosity, I understand about the bow attacks.
That's really just what it is. I like the fact that I don't like the concept that they're doing right now, at least with the 5th edition. I'm sure there's other systems that are trying to go this way, where racism is no longer a thing, and I'm like, that's bullshit.
Part of me is, and this is what I think. I agree with you on that. And people are like, oh no, No, the part of it is that certain groups, it doesn't matter where you are in around the world, if you're an outsider, they don't trust you. And it's part of overcoming those disadvantages. The same thing that with Lord of the Rings, especially in the movies, I thought they did it well. The elves and the dwarves did not get along. And the fact that Gimli and Legolas become good friends at the end is was like, oh, okay, you've gone through the whole journey. Um, it's like, okay, and this is what's going to set you apart. For the longest time, there are two groups that don't like each other, and that's one thing I do like about Warhammer. Guess what? The elves don't like the dwarves. The orcs don't like the dwarves. The dwarves don't like the orcs. It allows for one is it allows inherent conflict in there instead of everyone just doing kumbaya. But the
Yeah.
other part is this is why you have good and evil. You don't feel guilty for killing orcs because the orcs are inherently evil. And if you look at the first edition Dungeons and Dragons, orcs, there were no happy babies between orcs and other races, which people don't want to talk about. It's like, why were there so many half orcs? Because there were some really bad things that orcs did.
My brother wanted to play. This was years ago, but he wanted to play because I was running Pathfinder for him. He wanted to play a half drow,
Yeah,
and because of YouTube being YouTube, I'm not going to use the full wordage. But I'm like, so you want to play a blank
yeah,
baby?
right.
And my ex-wife's like, why would you say such a thing? I'm like, because drows only really mate with other drows unless the guys get extra, or sometimes the females get
Right.
extra frisky while they're doing a raid.
Oh, well, and who's to say that they aren't trying to, there's always torture.
Oh yeah,
The thing that I really dislike that they've done with the drow, and I know they did it with Driz, whatever. Could never pronounce that name. Drizzt. Yeah. It's like, look, you literally made the drow into good characters, whereas I much prefer when it's like, guess what? You got to play evil. If you didn't make it past past a certain level, you got turned into a drider or you got cursed or something. And you're like, oh, well, do you think that she's going to allow you to get it past a certain level if you're going to be good? And the answer is no.
well, I
You
mean,
know,
and this is like 3.0,
yeah,
2.0 mythology. Technically, there is a drow goddess that is not evil. She is the child of the main elf god and Lilith, or whatever her fucking name is. I don't mind that they're not completely, if there are drow, they're not, just outrightly lawful or chaotic evil.
right.
I'm fine with like a neutral or, Gordon Gecko drow where greed is good. And
Yeah,
to make
yeah.
my gold, I have to deal with multiple different races. I don't mind that.
Well, again, like I said, it's when you're growing up as a kid, and this is what I was looking at. Your elves were this, and but the drow were supposed to be the enemy of the elves, so the elves
Oh
would
yeah.
kill them on sight, and the vice versa, because there was an actual literal schism between the two groups, it's this very
Drows would do
similar.
night raids into elf villages or elf villages, I guess, wherever terminology you want to use, and kill. And when they were to break in their young drow to show them the evils of the surface world, they'd raid elves and show them how evil they are. No, yeah, I get it.
Well, a lot of it was intended to be, why did the drow live underground? Because they were forced underground because they lost the war.
Yeah.
That was part of it. And that's why the Underdark was so scary. That's where the Mind Flayers were. That's where the Drow were. That's where the Kuatoa are.
Maybe you can answer something for
Sure.
me. Are mind flayers aliens?
I think they
Because if
did.
you read Spelljammer, I think that's right.
Yeah,
They're
once
from
they went into
space.
Spelljammer, which was a 2E thing, that's what
Yeah.
they kind of the way that they made them.
They kind of crashed into the planet. I don't know. It's just weird.
Well, apparently they did some of it from the Barrier Peaks, but I think a lot of it was just hey, we've got these alien beings, and I think I think a lot of it comes from the Cthulhu. Hey, let's make
Mm.
these Cthulhu-like beings, and again, not everything has to be explained, especially in this. If you look like, I like the idea of the aboleths. I
Mm.
thought, to be fair, until they really got away from the negative, evil aspects of it, when fifth edition, those Mordenkainen's, what is it? There's the Book of Foes, and there was the other one,
Mm.
and they had the two books, and they fleshed out the history and background of the two. I thought that they did really good job, but it's when they came back and wanted to do all the revisionism. Oh, we're going to remove the slave. We're going to do this. Man, all those races became boring and vanilla. And I think that you do a real dis. I hate saying this.
Justice to the
Yeah,
product that you're trying to pump out. Well, as I said earlier, I like the fact that they finally fleshed out the orcs. I
yeah.
don't mind that there might be an orc out there that's neutral. Neutral. I don't want to say good, but just neutral. They don't. I don't like pinning anything to one Persac thing because no one is one Persac fucking thing. You
Well,
know.
but okay. So this is where I'm going to get into it. For some of it is, and this is the way I've looked at it as I've gotten older. Orcs and elves and dwarves. Yeah, there's some individuals that have fallen effectively,
Right.
but they've already decided with themselves on the cosmic balance, which is why they're lawful good or chaotic good, and the same thing with the drow. Okay, they're chaotic evil, and then you've got a lot of these others. But humanity was the one that why they have all the gods, because everyone's trying to fight over humanity, because humanity is the tipping point for the material planes,
Mm.
whichever way humanity goes. And that's why when you say, well, I don't like one or the other, well, humanity's supposed to be that one that is the one that changes, because they're the one that determines the balance of the world. um, Not the
That's fair.
dwarves, not the elves. Yes, you do have some that have fallen. That's part of the reason that, at least for the drow, my view on the drow is, well, you do have good drow. You theoretically could, but the reality of it is they kill them. Um,
Oh
as
yeah.
as far as the orcs, the way I look at it is the orcs are literally birthed from evil kind of thing, and that's why you can have a good half orc. Right? Again, I'm differentiating orc from half orc, um, but otherwise, but if you look at the original orcs, what do they look like? They're pig-headed beings that are kind of out there, and you have Grumish, who, which they did flesh out the orc gods, I think, by Unearthed Arcana. So you
Yeah.
did have some of that aspect. It wasn't until Eberron in third edition that they started separating from it, and the orcs, as much as we talk about stuff, the orcs and half orcs that are shown in fifth edition nowadays are your Warcraft 2 orcs. They are your World of Warcraft orcs. They are not the orcs from first and second edition. But to be fair, by the time you got to fifth edition, I'm not even sure why they put alignments in, because alignments don't mean anything. They don't mean like they did in first edition. First
Oh yeah,
edition,
no, they don't. I mean, I'm still
yeah,
slightly old school where I appreciate alignments. I do push them to a certain degree.
yeah,
But, if from a business point of view, which I can only imagine with a lot of businesses, you have to keep your thumb on the pulse of the generation that you're trying to service. And I don't think you should ignore the last generation. I think that's a very bad idea. But at the same time, your kid's playing what, fifth edition?
yeah. Well, that's because everyone plays fifth edition. So okay, fine. You play you
Right.
play what you play what other people play. Um,
You kind of have to go with the times. It gets people in trouble. It got fucking Disney in trouble. It's gotten other major multi-billion-dollar companies in trouble, but they have to a certain degree, go with the pulse of that generation, the ones that are actually buying the books. And us old, I mean, I guess I count myself as an old timer in this because I started in 3.5, but I agree with a lot of what you guys are saying about how things should be run. But if you're running a table that has somewhat of a different opinion of you, but they're your friends, right?
right. I,
you want to hang out, you want a game. It should not be an all or nothing scenario.
so how do I want to put this? Is, and I think people forget about this, is the generation that's playing fifth edition for the most part is going through the same stuff that I did when I was first getting into D&D, because it didn't make any sense. Because, well, my character's this. Well, a lot of it comes down to, if you don't read the appendix in books, you don't understand the world that Gygax was building, and you have to get that whole background for it. And I think that's part of the hard part of when you're looking at, like, well, orcs are all evil. Well, look at Lord of the Rings. There weren't good orcs. The best that you had is kind of a neutral, I'm not even saying mutual respect. It was kind of, hey, this group, like,
When the Uruk-hai were taking the Pippin and Merry
yep,
to the tower, and they had normal ogres there, it was like, why can't we eat? Just, they don't need their arms, they don't need their
right.
legs. No, because our boss told us that they need to come to us whole, undamaged, And so, yeah, I imagine that was where you're going with that.
Well, no. What I was saying is I was looking more at the Hobbit.
Oh,
Where the closest thing is that they do talk to the dwarves, and they capture them like, oh, look, you have Glamdring and this other stuff. There was a chance that they could have talked their way out of it, but they weren't. Oh my God, you have these weapons that are used to kill us.
oh my
You know,
God. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying. Like 2 weeks ago, I'm playing a
yeah,
dwarf in
Dragon
Dragon Bay,
Bane. Yeah,
and we come across some orcs. Well, I show my dwarvism by calling one a green face uh monkey or some variation of that.
yeah, yeah.
And which I should probably be careful with the term monkey. Um
I call my son a monkey, and he's as white as your wall.
right, right. Yeah, I get it. I trust me, I get it, but people are people. And they attacked us. And at the end of it, the DM and a few other players like, why didn't you do that? I'm like, well, dwarfs hate orcs. Orcs hate
Yep.
dwarfs. Well, no, it's not that way. I'm like, okay, we're playing the hippie version of Dragon Bane. Good to know.
Well, if you look at the old D&D, and I'm using this as an example, is they have a chart that tells you and how each race feels about each other. And so, um, we were talking with Mage's Musings about this.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, well, he was saying, it's like, well, what's good about this? He said, well, humans don't have any negatives towards all these other races. He said, whereas if you look at an elf and an orc have an absolute hatred, and then like an elf and a dwarf have antipathy. So it affects your reaction rolls. And as a kid, we never played with reaction rolls. As I get older, I really like reaction rolls. And now you're going, okay, well, maybe this person will hide. Maybe this person won't show stuff off. And like you said, is the racism aspect in there is, yes, these different groups don't like each other. And they do it because they're also reflections of their gods. Their gods don't like each other, so their children won't like each other. And I think that's the thing that people forget about is we're not talking about real life. We're talking like actual metaphysical, existential wars that are going across not just one plane of existence, but all planes of existence for all of your for the entire thing. And I think that's what people forget about is as D&D has gotten away from demons and devils and a lot of these what I want to call the metaphysical battles is
Right.
in D&D there's an actual physical battle on a that has to do with a cosmological battle, and players don't quite seem to realize it. I think the Indians do a very good job as far as cosmological battles. From the Indian subcontinent. Boy, go watch their stuff. When we were talking about how crazy things get, you're like, yeah, that is. I will say this much: ignoring the media and stuff, the Indians know how to have fun with their movies, even their most ridiculous,
Oh God, I've
sci-fi
seen
or
some
fantasy.
Bollywood movies that just they're fun as hell, But I'm like, what the? At the end of it, I'm wondering to myself, like, the fuck did I just watch?
Oh, I watched one of them, and they all they've got the big stories. The fact that how do I want to put it? I feel like Bollywood movies are what the movies used to be here in the United States, the 1980s. They're bombastic, they're unapologetic, and they're just plain fun and ridiculous, and
Yeah,
over the
yeah.
top. And I think that's something that Hollywood is missing. Um,
Oh,
but
speaking of
but
movies, I saw the new Cap movie, Captain
you
America and a Brave New World.
oh,
Harrison
okay.
Ford being the Red Hulk.
Okay, I just don't care about superheroes. I never
Oh,
have.
I know.
Yeah,
I have a lot of friends that are the same way. Um, I enjoy them actually. I really do.
yeah,
They're my candy. Uh, just because I grew up reading comic books
sure.
and I don't care. I mean, I went round and round with this one guy when well, Captain America, Steve Rogers. I'm like, no, Captain America was also Bucky. And so on the line, it became
Yeah,
a fucking title. It's like Thor. It's like when they had a woman play Thor. I'm like, well, they did it in the comics, so
I know. Well, some of it is when did they start coming down to it, but at the end of the day,
no,
um,
Jean. She
it's
was before what she became Thor way before the wokeness craze kicked off.
well, I don't know. That was yeah, and I don't
It
remember.
doesn't really matter on the scale of things.
No, well, some of it comes down to is people grew up with stuff in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and
Yeah.
that's what they latch onto. It's the same reason that when Shadow talks about Conan, it's like, well, there's so many different levels of Conan because there was the R.E.H. Howard Conan, there was the Marvel Comics
Oh
Conan,
man.
there was the and then other people took onto the same thing with the Cthulhu mythos. Um, but at the end of the day, I really did enjoy so many of like everything in there. Is you want how do I want to do this? You want conflict because it creates story,
Oh yeah. No, I
and
agree.
you don't have to agree with why the conflict is. In fact, the great one that I love, and I know you've missed it, is Jakar versus Londo. When you get, and I know you've only seen bits and pieces of it, they absolutely despise each other at the beginning of the series. By the end of the series, they're best friends.
That was one of my goals for this year. Was actually get through season one. No.
Well, it's one of those, and I'll be honest, I could not get into it until I could watch one episode every day. And
Mm,
once I could do that, then I could get into it. I was like, oh, but yeah, season one is so bad. Um,
shit.
it,
Because on the same
I say it's
topic,
bad. Yeah,
on the
go ahead.
same topic, I'm not a big sports guy, right? I mean, I enjoy
Right.
some sports, but I'm just not a big sports guy. Sports ball is interesting, I guess. Because I became a member slash owner to this lounge, I feel like a Rogaine commercial. Um, I have watched more football, basketball, and hockey than I ever have in my entire fucking life. And I enjoyed watching Super Bowl at the lounge. I enjoyed watching was it anyway, whatever sport, because I'm around people that actually enjoy it, and so it makes it more enjoyable to me, enjoyable to me. So I just got done watching a documentary on basketball. Who was it? Larry Bird and Magic
Johnson. Yeah.
Johnson, which was actually fucking interesting.
I mean, a lot of stuff that I watch is, but you want those rivalries.
Yeah.
If one is, it, hey, like for me, I have no real connection to NFL teams. It wasn't until, how old was I? I was 35 when I finally moved to a city that actually had an NFL team in it.
Oh
Um,
God.
I no, I mean, what I've been to is, and I count Fort Worth, even though it's technically Dallas, but the Dallas Cowboys are actually in Arlington.
Right.
Anyway, but it's DFW. But
Right.
like when I went up to Chicago for things, and they all
Oh,
love their sports teams. I mean,
Bears. I'm not Bear. The Bears
yeah,
and the Bulls. Jesus.
Bears, Bulls,
The
the
White
Cubs.
Sox, the Cubbies.
Yeah, I it sounds bad. I'm more of a White Sox fan for that, but someone gave me some tickets. Well, you gave me the tickets. Now, who am I going to vote for? I'm going to support the White Sox in that case.
Right. Oh
You
God,
know,
when I was a teenager and moved back to the States, my youngest brother, my stepdad, his son, would argue Cubbies, Cardinals, Cubbies, Cardinals, Cardinals, Cubbies. I walked through the room. It's like, who are you rooting for this year? I'm like, Red Sox. They're not even in
yeah.
this division. I know. You know.
Well, it's like the people that grew up with the Yankees. If you're in New York, it's kind of expected you're going to do some of that. When I was in Germany, Bayern München, for soccer.
Yeah, I think
It's
it's I think it's the same way I find myself at tables. The people make it more interesting than what I'm actually fucking doing.
that is absolutely true. People, you're right. I knew a lady. She was she was actually from Chicago, but she was a big Wisconsin fan because when she was up in Wisconsin, they with
Yeah,
the Green Bay. I was like,
yeah.
oh, okay. So yeah, I don't blame people for any of that. I really do enjoy. Um, it's like for me for Texas A&M. Well, I grew up around Texas A&M and Alabama. Those I have a personal connection to those two.
Row
Uh,
Tide.
yeah, well, my father went to University of Alabama, so I grew up with that. He knew Bear Bryant,
Oh
or
damn.
I say he met Bear Bryant a couple of times.
Oh
Um,
okay.
so and my father was at the University of Alabama when Bear Bryant was there, and so of course, there's a connection there. But do I have a connection to a lot of these others? No. Okay, I'll make fun a little bit of Auburn. I'll make a little fun of UT. I make more fun of UT because when I lived at UT, I didn't like UT. All right, when I was in Austin, I didn't like UT.
Oh my.
Um,
I went to college down in Champaign, Illinois,
yeah,
and you can't escape their basketball program, and you can't escape their football program. They're one of the Big Tens. And I played rugby. I mean, you're never
sure.
going to see a rugby team on TV, at least for the college.
Right,
It's
right.
not the same. But still, when you go to a gaming, and I'm not switching gears, I'm on the same gear.
Right. No, I know.
When you go to a gaming shop and it's a magic shop or mainly magic or it's mainly Warhammer, and you see a few guys in the back playing different RPGs, yeah, the different RPGs are fun, and maybe Magic the Gathering is fun if you like spending money on cardboard, which I have in the past. But it's the people there that makes this things fucking possible, not possible. Makes these things the people there more interesting than the game really is. And I love Shadow to death, I really do. But this this is how it was ran when I was a kid. Type thought processing is only going to kill the hobby.
Well, how I'm going to be a little bit different is, and I'm not against how we ran it as a kid. What I'm trying to do is, and I know Elfbait and I are very similar in this. The arguments that are going on a lot of times when I was watching the 5e YouTube were the exact same arguments that we had in the early 80s when we were kids just learning D&D. This is not a new thing. In fact, if you go read the old Dragon magazines, you can almost find the same arguments that are going on now as happened then. I mean, this
Rinse, lather,
isn't.
repeat.
Yeah, well, of course, because by the time that we're in our 50s, guess what? We stopped caring so much. We're here to play a damn game and we're here to have fun. And we don't want to be lectured by 20-year-olds on the way that we have to play our game and telling us how the game was when we played, which was nothing like what it was when we actually played the game.
Yeah,
You know.
I understand. I think,
No.
I
What
think,
I'm saying is just that people are saying something occurred that wasn't our experience with when we played at the time that they're telling us, and they weren't even born during that time. To have someone lecture me who's in their 20s about how the game was played in the early 1980s is false. That's what I'm
that's
referring to.
just that's
Yeah,
just a hill that I just don't. Yeah, there's always some son of a bitch trying to ice skate uphill. It's just that's just idiotic. I mean,
I
I got in a hobby after college because I
right,
was bored and I want to make some new friends, which is weird for me to say because I don't like most people.
right.
Um, really anybody. I have a few friends, but that's besides the point.
No, I know what you
Um,
mean.
and it was 3.5 days. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like that Dennis Leary joke about finding a cup of coffee. Was it where he, trying to go to 7-Eleven and have all these different fucking flavored coffees, but all he wants is coffee. So he says, fuck it. He goes to Dunkin' Donuts, the bastion of, coffee and donuts, and it's not the same. And so I don't know what your coffee tastes like when you were growing up using the
Right.
same
Right. Yeah.
technology. But I know what coffee tastes like from that point on.
Right.
And I'm not saying you're right. I'm not saying I'm wrong or vice versa. But if you want asses and seats, you're going to have to try to play to everybody's wants, which is a horrible idea.
Well, so I think that's not my argument in this case. What I didn't like was people screaming on how the game was when I was playing when it was nothing like that.
Uh,
Is what I was
uh,
trying to say. Yeah, it's like,
yeah,
well, you were gatekeeping people. I said, well, first off, I couldn't get enough people to barely run. If you think we could gatekeep, then we would have had no players. So that's absolutely true. I mean, to get 4 players together was like pulling teeth. Do you think we were going to exclude anyone? The answer was no. And
the
yet,
original group of people I gained with, right?
yeah,
Only two of them actually got married. Let's put
okay,
it
yeah,
got married and have a somewhat normal life. The rest of the cats, and I'm unfortunately one of the
yeah.
two. Uh, I love my daughters though. Are people you find in making a joke in their mom's basements. It wasn't that we're trying, in my opinion, it wasn't that they're trying to tell people, hey, please don't come over here. We don't want anything to do with you. It's like it was just the outside of the hobby looking in. It's like they're a bunch of nerds, geeks, and losers.
Well, right, but that wasn't us keeping people out. That was people not wanting to join, which are two very
Right.
different
There
things.
was if there
Yeah.
was only if there was any gatekeeping at all, it wasn't one side versus the other. It was perception of the people playing said game.
Well, what I'm going to say is it was society as a whole looking down on the people who played the game.
Yeah.
But that wasn't us gatekeeping people out. Everyone was welcome at our table. That's what I was pissed off about this. I said, and now people go back in retrospect. Oh, it was so great. I said, look, I remember the Satanic Panic, and then I remember getting mad because I would
I
have
remember
friends that
some
were
of it.
kind of interested, and they said, no, 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 my parents won't let me play that. And
Yeah.
why? Anyway, but that wasn't me keeping them out. That was their parents telling them not to play, which is a very different aspect. That's what I'm trying to say. Is I don't want people coming back and then saying, it was,
Remember?
blah blah blah. I said, you didn't live back then, and I was
Right.
talking to and I said, like you're talking
Yeah.
about. By the time you came in 3.5, I had already left, and in fact, a lot of us had left D&D for a long time, and it wasn't until oddly enough, our kids were actually somewhat grown or in the mid 2000s. It wasn't like I didn't want to play; I did, but it wasn't until after the 2010s, a lot of us came back into the hobby, and we're like, this is a different thing. 3.5 isn't for us, but guess what? We found this OSC game. We found that there was this resurgence among the really old games that we like to play that we remembered playing. Okay, great. Same thing happened with and I'm looking at it now. It's not that my coworkers don't want to play. One of them he would love to do in game, but his wife doesn't want anyone at their house, so they don't do in game that
I
much.
know a few couples are that way.
Yeah, there was that.
And
She
sometimes
plays.
the wife is the gatekeeper.
Well, that's what I mean. Is she's the one preventing people coming in. Um,
Yeah.
Nothing against she's a lovely human being, but before they got married, they would have people over every weekend. Well, now they don't. And and he says, I would love to have people back in, but she's kind of like, I don't want people at the house. The house is a mess or whatever. But do you really think that we care if people really? That said, is a little different. So again, a group all about my same age.
Yeah.
They welcome everybody for the most part.
This is because
They're
it's hard
about
fucking
45
fun.
minutes away. They have a group of like 10 or 15 people. Of like 10 people. I said, I would love to join, but I usually have things I've got to do on Saturdays or whatever, and as much as with Shadow going through it, He wants a long-term campaign, and I want a West Marches style campaign. And why do I want a West Marches style? So I don't feel like I have to show up every weekend. If I want to show up this week, which is what Ye Olde Geek does, is West Marches style is, guess what? You play for this amount of time, you go back to town, and that's it. And then you go back out again for something.
What was the system Mike Jade's running? Index RPG,
Yeah, I know he
which
loves that.
which kind of depends on the storyline and what's going on. Is kind of what you're talking about, because the players have the opportunity to go back to town,
Yep.
rest up, heal, and you don't technically have to be there for the next session because life. It just kind of runs, runs its own bloody course.
I mean, this morning for Ye Olde Geek, we will have anywhere from 2 to 9 players, and you don't know who's going to show up that week.
I do enjoy. I watch some of his games. I love the way his brain thinks. I'd actually love to become better friends with that gentleman, but
well, that's
yeah.
the Call of Cthulhu game. No, I'm
Yeah.
referring that we have OSC games. One is we aren't even sure who's running most of the time in the morning. It's you show up. We have 3 GMs, literally. There are 3 GMs. Most people have about 3 characters because they're all playing concurrently. In fact, sometimes we'll have 4.
In the same world?
Same world, yes. And what happens is if your character is that they're not as strict now, but if you're on the same timeline, if one character is in someone else's game, you can't play that character. You have to create a new character until that one's freed up from that other timeline.
That makes sense.
And
yeah, that makes sense.
So that's the West Marches style. So a lot of us have 3 characters, and we're like, well, you know what? I'm going to play in Gingerbeard's game. So can we play in Gingerbeard's game? Well, Gingerbeard isn't running this week. Gene's going to be running a game. Well, my character's still caught in the dungeon with Gingerbeard, so I have to have a different character to play in Gene's game. Well, in Gene's game, that character's now caught in this dungeon, so now I'm going to have to play a third character to play in John's game. So, and that's the way it works. And then it's like, well, if one of them goes back to town, like, well, can he come over into my game? They're like, yeah, you can't because you have it's all running on basically the same calendar. So you kind of do that. But guess what? If I don't want to show up, I don't have to show up. And it actually feels kind of refreshing. So more people show up because they don't feel obligated for every game at every night.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, hey, we want to play. Okay. I want to play this game. Okay. And there's one guy who will literally play for 12 hours on a Saturday. He plays.
That's every other Saturday.
No, in 3 games.
Oh, fuck.
He'll be playing, not 12 hours each, but he'll be playing in the morning game, and there's like an hour or 2 break between the 2. Then he'll be playing in the afternoon game, and then he'll play in the evening game. And so he might be playing, one will be the OSC game, so that's your BX. Then he plays in a MERP game, and then he comes over to play in the Axe game. And then sometimes I'm going to take a nap between the 2. I'll play in the morning. I'll play in the evening. We played with John one time because he says, hey, we want to Call of Cthulhu game. Like, oh, okay, guess what? But I only have to play in that game for 3 or 4 sessions, and then I can take off. And that's what I like.
Characters die in those Call of Cthulhu games.
Well, so we played the module. It's called Reign of Terror. Somehow our characters survived the first adventure. Not sure how they did, but we were super lucky. We survived the first adventure. In the second adventure, we won, but all of the characters died. We all got our heads chopped off because we were playing during the French Revolution.
But
we saved Paris, so Paris didn't get destroyed. So I consider that a win.
That could also be considered a loss. Just depends on how I feel about it.
Okay, yeah. But I mean, but those are the fun things that come from it, and that's why I like the West Marches. But man, Shou's like, "Are you showing up tonight? Are you showing up tonight?" And I'm like, I just want to play the West Marches style. It's more relaxing, and that was the way he portrayed it. And And I'm like tomorrow, I'm like, okay, I don't mind missing a few sessions, but I do feel kind of guilty when we're in this long, involved, detailed story instead of just like,
I
okay,
get
guys.
that.
Well,
Let's see. Monday, this
yeah.
coming Monday. Oh, okay. I just finished up doing my Rise of the Rune Lord Pathfinder a couple months ago, right?
Okay.
And we switch DMs on Mondays. You know, there's three, technically four of us that could DM, and
Uh-huh.
we take turns every other Saturday. It's like every other Monday. It's Finn, and it's me. Oh, now it's Finn, and two other gentlemen, and they're running three different games: a Dragon
Yeah.
Bane, a sci-fi game, which is a cyberpunk thing, and a fifth edition game. Well, now you know the part of the group is talking is like, "Hey, Connell, yeah, when are you going to start running Curse of Strahd?" I'm like, "Oh, you guys want me to DM again, but I don't want to." But you know, I haven't told them that, but I do plan on running. It's nice to take a break. But what I'm getting at is having a different game every Monday keeps things fresh. Where Bruce's game, it's every other Saturday. It can run anywhere from fucking 9 to 10 fucking hours, and I'm having fun with it. I broke my cardinal rule with it. My character is now married and has kids. I hate that. Where Shadow's like, all players need to describe, want to get married and have kids. I'm like, no, not all of us. Where I typically like to just play a character. If he survives the entire campaign, that's fucking awesome. And it's like the old West movies where the hero just disappears into the sunset.
Right. Yep. Yep.
I'm very much happy with that. That to me is
So
the goal.
so I've been talking to Shadow about this, and I said, the we're going through, we get treasure. And then in the West Marches game, you get the treasure, you split it up. But it's like, no, you guys are still running through this. No, you're still running through this. Like, okay, I know you're trying to do a really big session for it, but I would much be happier say, okay, after 4 weeks, we do this, and then there's going to be like a 3 month lull. Instead, it feels like we're just running through it as fast as possible, and we're playing like every day. How do I want to put this? I don't want to play every day of my character's life and have it like 24. Um, well, what are you doing this hour? Oh, by the way, now we're going to have this, and the world's going to blow up. Oh, and then it's another hour, and the world's going to blow up. And another time, it's going. I said, no, I want. Okay, guess what? You finish this adventure. Now, guess what? You have to take off 3 to 6 months because there are seasons that pass, and I want time to pass because then it feels like your characters are actually aging forward, and time means something.
Yeah, that always kind of drove me slightly crazy with comic books growing up. It was always one big thing after the next. There was no 3 years later, whatever. But it was like always one big headache after the next. And I've been in several campaigns. It's normally a ripple. It starts with one small thing, then it gets
Yep.
medium, then you got your big problem, then the game's over.
Right. And
And I'm okay with that. If I
I,
can go back to that character 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years down the line, where they've had a little bit of life, where my guy who walked off into the sunset has found himself back into town because he's called, because
yes,
that's fine. That works for me. That's fine.
and that's what I wanted to do for a lot of the games. Is I said, okay, and to be fair, when I joke about 24, what I meant is 24 for every day of the character's life is like that kind of thing, like you said with the comic books. Whereas 24 was, the series. Guess what?
Mm.
Between each season, there was
With
like a
Keith
year and a half,
Sutherland,
2 years,
yeah.
and that's what I want to do. It's like you tell me what you can do over the next year. Which one is, like Shadow talks about, he wants his magic users to create magical items. Well, guess what? If you have a year or two of downtime, you can do that. You can start watching things being built, and then you say, okay, and then you come back together at some point. Say, all right, after these 2 years, you hear about it. A dark lord across the mountains that's starting to do this, and you start setting up some of the events, and you start, you can lay out some of the groundwork for it. And I feel like in that case, then the players They don't have to do what you're telling them, but now they know that the world's going to start moving. They say, okay, in another month, this is happening. Now you start hearing these rumors, and when you just tell me when you want me to start playing at like real world time versus the hyper accelerated time, and you can start laying that out and for your story, but the players don't have to necessarily engage in it. The world will still hit them at some point, but they don't feel like they're obligated that they have to, save it's not like Men in Black where they have to save the world like every day.
Oh yeah. There's always somebody. There's always, even I when I used to box, right, and
Yeah,
I'm trying to find a way to make this link. It links in my head, but doesn't always come out that way.
that's okay.
Where I box somebody, and all right, well, you have another match in 6 months, and
Yeah.
you're just working down line until and there you get a title shot. That to me makes sense. Where in campaign, okay, you took out a group of bad guys. Well, these bad guys are part of a syndicate, and it just keeps leveling up. At the end, it's like a stereotypically a dragon or a mind player, some big bad. I
Well,
like that.
for me, I want something small, and then I want something, hey, guess what? Some orcs are bothering the town. Okay, that's great. And then in the meantime, you might find hints about, well, there's undead, and you hear more rumors. But then you can go say, hey, you know what? The dragon's bothering us. Okay, so you can deal with the dragon. But you're still hearing about the rumors about more and more undead. Okay. At a certain point, events in the world are going to overtake you. But it's not the focus of your game until near the end. So the players can deal with it and stop the menace early, or they can stop it late. But it's
Yeah.
up to them of when they want to. Well, it's coming, but they don't feel obligated that they have to deal with it now. Um, I almost want to bring it up like World War II. Okay, you can. When are you going to get in the war? You can get in the war early, or you can get in the war late.
Right. No,
And maybe
that tracks. I would love to find myself in another game with you where I'm not DMing. That when Mark running that campaign, I know I missed felt like 80% of them, but the few ones I was in with you and Shadow, and just the way that Mark as a DM played, that was really really fun. Um,
well,
I don't
and
know.
we it was 2 sessions, and you came in on the second one. When he ran it.
Kicks me in the nuts from time to life always finds a way to kick me in the nuts at the worst fucking possible time, but I'm not the only person out there, so I don't feel too bad.
No, but I meant, and I haven't seen Mark in over a year.
As he just fell off the
Yeah, but who knows? Because people get busy, and I don't want to feel like they're, it's just like most of my friends. There's friends I have not seen in years. Like one of my friends, I hadn't seen him in 9 years, and I saw him again. He's like, "Hey, you can stay overnight." I'm like, "Okay, cool, thanks." Because
oh yeah,
you
no,
talk to him. It's the same way that I feel like with these RPGs, and I've been joking with one of the guys, and we'll argue politics, but at the end of the day, this is what I think that people forget about. When I was growing up, the point of games, board games or whatever, was to bring people who disagreed about the rest of the things in their life. And in
right.
the game, guess what? You're my battle buddy. You're there. I'm
Oh
going to
yeah,
pull you out of the
yeah.
fire. We're going to do this. And I made friends that way. Okay.
Yeah, look at me and fucking Bruce. We disagree on politics and some on religion, but
Sure.
he is one of my better friends, and I could not talk to him for. There was a while where I didn't talk to him for about 2 years, and we fell right back into the same, like time never happened. Another example is me and you. Me and you haven't talked in a couple months.
Oh, yeah. Like 6 months, probably.
6
Something like
months.
that. Yeah.
And we picked up tonight, just having you on this, we picked up like there has been no time, there's been no time difference.
Oh, yeah.
And as what you're talking about gaming, where you bring people together and they become your battle buddy, as you just said.
Yep.
If there is enough on the table that makes you guys want to hang out, gaming will make friends. Will be. You know, you told us. I think it was you. Somebody was picking on you or
Oh
bullying
yeah.
you,
Yep.
and later on, you guys became friends via the game, which is that's
Oh yeah.
awesome. That is incredibly awesome. I just think there's this huge fucking division in the hobby, but there's always been divisions in the hobby.
Well, I'm gonna say this much. A lot of it. Don't be wrong. I mean, when I was a kid, we almost got over fist fights over rules. So it wasn't politics. It was literally over rules. Okay. We're
Right.
talking, I mean, we would sit there and argue like, oh, really? And like, almost push each other, get ready to go to blows. You'd throw dice at each other. I mean, these were not, but we've worked through that as an adult. It's like, dude, if I don't like your game, I can, get me the next game. This game isn't for me. That's kind of the, that's an adult thing. But as a kid,
Yeah, I have the same argument. Yeah, I completely understand. For another, Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who, but if I don't like the writing or the person playing the Doctor, I can skip it and wait till the new fucking Doctor. Same way with fucking games. It's as long as the game is interesting and you're playing with people that you find interesting, if not like, it's worth fucking doing. The moment
well,
it's not,
I,
well, go find something else to do.
exactly. Why people do this and they don't wrap your identity into it. It's like, yes, I'm a role player. I also like guns. I like to go out. I like to go farming. These are not things that are, they're somewhat, they're not mutually exclusive, but they are completely different and unrelated.
Oh yeah,
But the other part that, when we start talking about these things is certain systems I don't like, others I do. So certain people I like to play, and I'll play a game with them, but I don't like that. Is like I said, is when Bo is on, and it's a lot. It's like, wow, I'm not doing that, but he literally said is, I want you to tell me like what maneuver you're using in jujitsu. In the meantime, I'm just like, I just want to tell you that I'm trying to subdue him.
I don't have a red belt in that. I have no idea what move I'm doing. I'm trying to do a hip toss with punches in his face.
Yes, it's like, look, if he's on the ground, okay, I'll try sitting on him, or I'll try restrict. I'm trying. Usually, I do like, and I'm not the best for role playing. I am. These are the actions. This is the end result I'm trying to go for. You
Right.
tell me, what I'm going to do. It's like, okay, I am trying to disable him, or I'm trying to shoot him. Okay, I don't need to know. All right, I'm going to do such and such windage and this and that, and that's great, and I can do some of that. But the other part is, enough things are dynamic in the world that it's like whenever you watch basketball players, there are several things that look like suboptimal shots, but they're optimal for that 1 second when they're making them. That's what I'm afraid. You look at it and like, but if you're going to play a game and you're going to do it and say, okay, what percentage is the best one to use? Well, this one has a 30%, this one has a 40%. And you start doing it, then you're almost always going to use the optimal rather than just what's the cool maneuver. It's like, okay, I'm trying to score points.
Yeah. I'm eventually going to make it down to Texas because Bruce is in my ass right now to come down and visit him. There's a few other people in that game that all live in Texas. That's like, hey, you need to come down here. You need to come down here and hang out. I'm like, I live in Illinois. Y'all live in Texas. I can't exactly hop in my car and be back, home that night. But it's going to happen. But when I get down there, I would like to meet you in person. And hypothetically, let's say, well, you tell me, hey, let's go catch a meal and go to the gun range. I'm like, okay, you said you're a gun guy. And you lay out a series like 2 or 3 guns. I know a difference between a hand pistol and an assault rifle. Don't ask me what their fucking names are.
No, well, at the end of the day, it's like, hey, look, this one's going to be like this. We're going to shoot this one. Don't shoot this real fast. This one, shoot this as fast as you can. In certain, a perfect example is the difference between a bolt action, a semi-automatic, and a lever action. And I had a friend of mine that once told me years ago, "Why do you have so many guns?" The answer was, "Why do you have so many shoes?" Um, you know,
Each
it
gun has a different job. I mean, a
it
bolt
does.
action, you put the bolt in, you push the bolt up so it's loaded in, you fire, you push the bolt back, if it's
Yeah,
bleach no, it depends on I
yeah. But what I meant is you wear different clothes for different
r-
occasions. You do
right.
different things. Some of them, it's like
I
you
have
know,
like four different fucking bows. Yeah, they're all bows, but they have different aspects to them.
and they're all
One
fun in a different way.
way, yeah. One's meant for hunting, if I ever can get around to it. One is for the sport I'm in, and one is just to fuck around with.
Like my recurve, of course, the problem was that I think that I got the pull should have been longer. The poundage is fine, but the pull is too short. So when I pull
Oh,
up for my
gotcha.
full length, its poundage goes way up. Um,
Gotcha.
it's but they're like, why didn't you go for a compound? And I said, well, because if a compound is that I would want to be perfect at it all the time. Whereas with the recurve, I'm like, I only I have to be fast. So when I
Yeah.
shoot it, it's like I can't hold it back for very long. So pull it, go. Which one's better for hunting? There's no doubt that the compound is better for hunting, but
Better control, better poundage,
yeah,
uh, funner. I mean, you could put a whiskey biscuit and all this on your recurve, but do you really want to? Versus a compound where you could put sights, a whisker biscuit on it, and a few other things, gadgets with it that makes it somewhat of a not a better shot, just
it's a
puts
precision instrument, is what I want to say. It's
right.
more.
It's no
I,
different than putting a. I don't understand people that put scopes on fucking pistols, but there's people out there that do that. But putting a scope on a rifle, that makes sense to me, unless you're old school using the iron sights. But
it,
whatever
it,
makes you
it,
happy.
and which one's fun? If you can use
Right?
a scope,
Yeah.
you're going to have to do it. If you're using iron sights, you're probably going to shoot faster. Um, there's nothing wrong with any of it. It's well, what do you need a pistol? Well, a pistol is easier to conceal. A pistol is not as far. That says it's not as accurate. If I'm going to be shooting at 1,000 yards, why do you need to shoot 1,000 yards? Because it's fun. That's
Oh
you
yeah.
know it.
No,
They're,
it's
they're like, well, you didn't kill someone. Well, you know what? For the number of guns I have, and my father's been in the military. My father was in the military for over 30 years. Well, no, at 30 years, he had to retire. So he was in the military for 30 years. Um, how many people has my father shot? Zero.
oh wow.
And don't get me wrong, is my father responsible for killing people? Yes. Um, but but that was as a commander, he wasn't the one pulling the trigger.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
different argument. It's just
but
be
it's not a moral thing. What I'm trying to say is, but
yeah.
people act like by having a gun, you're going to go out and shoot someone with it. Is what I always thought was odd. And I said, well, and I saw that more in Chicago than I have down here. I said, no. Part of it just comes down to is at the end of the day, which I still love from the Conan movie. You know, the riddle of steel. He says
Right.
steel isn't strong. It's the hand that wields it. That is strength. That's it
Yeah.
was the person behind it. And I feel the same way whenever we play about role playing games. I want the thing going into it. Well, and Shadow and I have talked about weapon breakage, and he gets mad about weapon breakage every so often. I said, well, the problem I have with it is that it's not that I'm against it. But it has to be used judiciously. You can't do it all the time. But if you're going to be fighting a giant, I have no problems rolling to see if your shield survives a crushing blow when you get hit.
I mean, historically, most weapons didn't survive. I
Well,
mean,
most weapons would survive a few combats. Don't get me wrong, they would.
yeah.
But but a lot of them. But you were supposed to repair them after combat. You were supposed to,
Right. I just fantasy is awesome. Don't get me wrong.
yeah.
Adding a little bit of realism, I think, makes it a little bit more interesting. It's like if I roll nat one and I confirm it with a nat one, and the DM tells me your string breaks. Okay, I can that that works for me. I pull too hard or whatever, or God
Right.
forbid, my limb cracks. Oh, good God. Uh That's more scary than a broken string.
Well, a perfect example is I like Forbidden Lands and Alien. And I know Shed hasn't played these, and he's used to certain ones, but in Alien, they have it where you have like air, and air is represented by 6 dice. So like roll 6 dice. If you roll the 6 dice and 3 of them come as face huggers, guess what? Your air goes from 6 dice to 3 dice.
Oh,
And when you go
damn.
to 0 dice, you suffocate.
Oh,
So
damn.
it now again, your odds of using up all 6 dice are rare, but it could still be there.
It can
But
still happen. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, and so then you roll the next shift. Okay, now I roll those 3 dice. Well, every one of them that comes up as a face hugger, it reduces the dice. So when you're down to like 1 or 2 dice, you can feel that stress build up, which I like about Alien for that. But the same thing happens with the Forbidden Lands is they have a reroll mechanic. And when you reroll, you have a little skull. Well, you keep the skulls. And what happens by that, if you reroll, it starts damaging your equipment or it hurts your health or something like that. So you go, do I want the negative effect by not succeeding, or am I willing to risk my weapon for this? And your weapon might have like 3 dice to it or 2 dice or something. And if you reroll, it starts impacting it that way. I like that kind of aspect. It's a really elegant system for that. I haven't played Forbidden Lands
I
that much.
like that concept. I've had a few conversations. If I ever made my own system, which I don't ever see happening, but stranger
Yeah.
things have happened, I would attach your con to casting magic. And I've had a few people's like, why? I'm like, I like the concept of you're able to cast magic. It you're burning energy out of your body, no different than swinging a sword or anything. Eventually, your body's just gonna say, "I'm done." You
So
know?
so and I know that we're talking about the negative things, and Shadow doesn't like this. I kind of like having where there's some negative things, but it depends on what your weapons and stuff. Um, and this was one thing I did not like about cantrips in 5e. You can keep casting cantrips forever, but
Yeah, it's useful, but I understand.
but well, and this is a personal opinion. This is not it depends on what type of game system. What I liked about the first edition D&D for this is when you ran out of spell slots and your wizard had to pull out a dagger, you felt like you were in true desperation because you were in a
Yeah.
truly desperate situation. I thought it was funny as I was playing the old Geeks game one time, and we were fighting Black Widow spiders, and my character cast the spell or whatever, but then he was almost out. So he was throwing daggers, but at one point he had to pull the dagger out and was fighting a Black Widow. And you're like, there's true desperation. If I get bitten, I'm dead. And he had like 2 hit points. And it's like,
So imagine you're playing a spellcaster,
sure.
right? A wizard, right? And you are fighting several swarms of pick whatever, right?
Right.
And you do your first 2 big spells, right? I want you to roll me a con save.
Yep. No, that's what Shadow Dark kind of does if you actually look at it. And
I gotta try again. I tried Shadow Dark once and just had a shitty DM.
well, that could be and Shadow's like, well, I don't like Shadow Dark. There is and I've heard other people, you could die from casting it. Your odds of dying from casting a spell are pretty minimal, but the fact that it can be there causes people not to cast as often.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the other part is, if you're willing to embrace that kind of randomness and know that you can blow yourself up, if you say, you know what, my character's kind of a wild man, it's going to do it, you can have a lot more fun with that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Is I also look at DCC, which has a very similar magic system where they show that you get corrupted over time. But one of the things that you can do
It's a
is
very much a wheel of time scenario.
you can burn your stats. They're temporary burn, but for every stat that you're willing to lose temporarily, you can increase your effect by 1 point.
Oh, nice.
Now,
Well, Dragonbane has something like that. If you fumble on a roll, you can force a reroll, but one of your
yep,
stats gets a mark against it, so you have
Yes.
a bane, and I think that's fucking brilliant. It annoys me when it happens to me. Don't get me wrong, but I think that's fucking brilliant.
Well, and I didn't know Dragonbane does that, and that's taken a lot from the other Free League games where you can do some of that. Where you can force your reroll, and then
Yeah.
you start taking either you take damage, or in like Alien you take stress. Um,
Game
and
over,
stress.
man. Game over.
Well, they have that ability in there. When you go through, it goes in a chart, and
Yeah.
so the interesting part is as you get stress dice. So if you get, when you get one stress die for every stress point. So if you get like 2 or 3 stress dice, you're not too worried about it. But each die, as long as it doesn't roll a face hugger on the stress dice, adds to the number dice you roll for a success. So if
That's
so
cool.
as you're more stressed out, you have a better chance of actually getting more fantastic results. That said, is if any of your stress dice show up as a face hugger, you failed the roll, and now you have to look at what the stress chart has. And so
I
the
like.
stress chart can include everything from being catatonic to going berserk. Where Hudson at the end's like, "You want some? You want some?" He's like shooting before he's taken down.
Yeah,
So you get that. I do like that aspect to it. Some of them is like you suddenly scream and rage. Um, yeah, it's
that's cool. I like that. I'm
uh,
gonna have to try to find somebody who's willing to run that for me, even if it's just a one shot. Before we go any
sure.
further or dive into anything else, I just want to point out 2 things. As I said earlier, the Cigar is about done, so I'm about
Yep,
done with the live stream.
sure.
And two, we haven't talked about food. We might have to, have a stream where we just talk about food, man. I miss conversations with you about food.
Oh, I
Uh,
know.
but yeah, I'm going to wrap up the stream. We'll talk behind the scenes if you
That's
want for a
fine.
little bit. But everybody who stuck around for the 2 hours and 41 minutes, I don't know why, but thank you. Uh, don't know next time I'll do one of these streams, but most likely will be more sooner than later. Everybody out there, be safe. Go get some sleep because I'm sure it's 2 o'clock here.
Yeah.
And I'll see you when I see you.